Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Town Board meeting for April 19th, 2022. We're going to change things up a little bit tonight because we have a special presentation. And Mr. Campobasso, if you could please signal the honor guard. If everyone could please, as they come in, rise.
Hey, ho!
We'll have Chief Noble lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Out, ho!
Move this a little bit. And before I dismiss our honor guard, what I'd like to say is that after a close to 20-year absence, this police department once again has an honor guard. And the four members that you see here tonight, from the left, my left, Detective Tom Byrer, Officer Joyce Paliuca, Officer Michael Tillestrand, and Officer Angel Garcia, have volunteered their time this evening to be with the community and their brother officers to act as the Yorktown Police Department Honor Guard. You'll see them regularly at parades and ceremonial functions that this agency has in the future. Along with these members, Lieutenant Justin Foley, Sergeant Mark Rapisarda, and Officer Jerry Permuto, who's in the back today in attendance, they are also members of the Yorktown Police Department Honor Guard. As you look at them this evening, I couldn't be prouder to be chief, to bring back this honor guard and have them represent our agency in our town. They do an outstanding job, and I'd ask you all to please recognize them this evening and give them a round of applause before they leave tonight. Three of the members, Officer Tillestrand, Officer Garcia, and Officer Permuto, have proudly served their country and are former members of the United States Armed Service, and for them, we thank them for their service to our country. Honor Guard, dismissed.
Forward! Huh!
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Please be seated, everyone.
Thank you. And I'll have you know that was their first, that's their initial assignment.
They
here
passed
this
with
evening.
flying colors.
And they did. They were quite impressive.
They
I
did
think
terrific.
They did very well, and they represent us very well. Like I said, I couldn't be prouder. All right. So I'd like to thank the town board tonight for allowing me to make this presentation, and for also allowing me to skip you all in line before you get your messages going. I'm glad you let me go. And I'm going to introduce a few members to the public, but first, I'd like to give two civilian awards. And for the highway superintendent, Dave Paganelli's here. You even wear red with a nice sweater. So it's nice to see you here tonight. But Lieutenant, if I could have Mike O'Neill. And Mike O'Neill, I'd like to have you join me, and anybody else that you brought here with you tonight. Mr. O'Neill.
Thank you.
Sir, and Curtis. The Yorktown Police Department tonight, we're honoring Mr. O'Neill, who is the president, him and his wife, O'Neill Concessions, better known as Mr. Softy. All right. There we go. We're coming out of this COVID thing in flying colors thanks to the leadership, of the town and a lot of different people rallying together. And so many people did nice things for us that throughout the year at ceremonies like this, we're going to honor them for being there for us. And one of these nice folks in the community is Mr. O'Neill and his family and his employees at O'Neill Concessions. During the COVID outbreak, he supported us by allowing us to get together with the community and sponsoring us to do Cops and Cones up at Granite Knolls Park. He also was with us. They were also with us at National Night Out when we had that last year at Granite Knolls. And the kindest thing that you guys did for us was showing up at the Yorktown Police Department during the height of COVID, and you allowed us to have our families and bring the kids out and serve them ice cream. And that's something that we never forgot, that we truly appreciate and wanted to recognize here tonight. So I have a certificate, a Yorktown Police Department Certificate of Appreciation, which is awarded to O'Neill Concessions in recognition of their participation, support, and generosity in sponsoring the Yorktown Police Department's Cops and Cones and National Night Out events, and also for coming by our headquarters and really brightening up our day, picking us up when we needed it. So, Mr. O'Neill, on behalf of the Yorktown Police Department,
I've been a member of the community for 35 years, and I love Yorktown, originally from Yonkers. I'm a retired police officer as well, and we have the best police department. I think we really are very lucky to have them.
Yes, we are.
And in fact, 3 or 4 of the guys have worked for me in the past. When we were teenagers, we used to operate FDR State Park. So we go back 35 years. And we appreciate the town and the leadership that you guys. And I like to donate a truck.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you, Curtis.
Right there with one of my very best workers right there.
he almost didn't pass his background working for you. Come on, Ryan, get a picture here.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I love the truck.
All right. Yeah. Thanks again, Mr. O'Neill.
Thanks, Mr. O'Neill.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks
Thanks,
you very
Mike.
much.
Great job.
Thanks
Great
for all
job.
you do for the community.
Dr. Zuckerman, you here? Come on up with your crew. Ardsley and Yorktown Veterinary Associates. Dr. Z, thank you. Please introduce
This is Dr. Lindsay Thomas. He's one of the veterinarians.
Dr. Lindsay. That's right. How you doing? All right. Good to see you. All right. A certificate of appreciation is being awarded tonight to the Ardsley and Yorktown Veterinary Associates Group. They take care of Yorktown Police Department K-9 SPAR. And K-9 SPAR's partner, Officer Campion, there he is. He's here in the room. SPAR is not, but, the veterinary associates at Ardsley and Yorktown have gone above and beyond in your care for K-9 SPAR. K-9 SPAR recently needed a medical procedure, and you know what? They did it free of charge for us. It was something that was of significant cost, and they decided to do the work pro bono. And their association, the associates, have also purchased insurance for K-9 SPAR in the event there's some major calamity that may happen to K-9 SPAR. And you know what? I don't think you'll find a better people than animal lovers. And as somebody very wise once said to me, you meet somebody who doesn't like animals, that's probably somebody you don't want to meet. Mm-hmm. And that you're entrusted to the care, and you do it so well. And we all love K-9 SPAR, the community and our police department. And we trust his care to you, and we can't thank you enough for all that you do for our K-9 program. So,
Really our pleasure.
and I'm going to let you speak as soon as I'm done here, but to Dr. Z, as we affectionately call him, and the members of the Ardsley and Yorktown Veterinary Associates, in recognition of their continuous professionalism, dedication, and empathy in caring for the veterinary needs of Yorktown Police Department's K-9 SPAR, dated this date, 19th of April, 2022. I can't thank you guys enough. Thank you very much. A big hand. you say a few words?
No.
It really is our pleasure, to help support SPAR and the Yorktown Police Department. I've lived in Yorktown for the last 20 years almost. Raised my kids here. I actually just sold my house and moved.
We won't hold it against you.
But yeah, I'll always have a piece of me here. I'll always consider it part of home, and hopefully for many years, the business will continue to support the police department and the canines that help support the community. And SPAR does a great job. We love SPAR.
You bet.
And
Yeah.
hopefully it'll continue for many years. Maybe there'll be more.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well,
Thank you
Dr.
both.
Z.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Great
Z.
job.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Lindsay. Thank you so much.
All right. There'll be more this year, but those are the first two this evening, and I thank you for having me and allowing them to celebrate our community helping us. Next, I'd like to introduce you to our two newest police officers that have joined us from the NYPD. And our first one, I'd ask Officer Domenico Donati to please step up and join me here at the podium. Officer Domenico Donati attended Yorktown High School and graduated in 2014. During his time at Yorktown High School, he was part of the varsity football team. Domenico then went to Westchester Community College, where he graduated in 2016 and was part of the National Honor Society. Domenico received an associate's degree in criminal justice from Westchester Community College. Domenico was volunteered in the Yorktown Athletic Club football program, coaching multiple age levels. Domenico began his policing career in the New York City Police Department on January 4th, 2017. He was then stationed in the 48th Precinct, the 4-8, where he worked on patrol and then on a public safety team. During his time in the NYPD, Domenico received multiple medals for meritorious and excellent police duty. Domenico grew up in Yorktown and has lived here his entire life. He wants to continue to make Yorktown a great place to live and grow up in. And I will have you know, during our background investigation, this guy, and you're going to meet Officer Nuccelli afterwards, they both worked in high crime areas. And you know what? They nary a complaint. They really handled themselves quite well. And in order to receive a job up here in Yorktown, you almost have to be spotless. And I think we got a real good one. We got two real good ones, and you got one of them to my left right here tonight. So we give a round of applause for the Yorktown Police Department, Officer Domenico Donati. At this time, I'd like to ask the Honorable Town Clerk, Diana Quast, to please come down and administer the oath. And I'd like to ask Mr. and Mrs. Donati to please come on up here and join your son. And Mom, I'm going to pin the badge on Officer Donati's chest here.
Right. Awesome.
What do you need? What do you need?
I'll turn it. It's fine. Congratulations.
Stand here and face out. No, over here. Face out, please. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Domenico Donati,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of
police officer in the town of Yorktown,
police officer in the town of Yorktown,
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
All right. Speech. Speech.
I guess the chief isn't working on his lacrosse team anymore. He's going to football.
All the
Buddy,
best.
congratulations.
Congratulations.
Welcome aboard.
And a few words from Officer Donati.
I would like to thank the chief, town supervisor, and also the town board, everyone else from the Yorktown.
You need to talk into the mic.
Yeah, you got to. Otherwise, the guy in the back booth gets mad.
There is a man behind there.
There's
I'd
a
like to
man
thank
behind that
everyone in the police department, town board, the chief, town supervisor for hiring me. I look forward to working in the town of Yorktown and helping have Yorktown a great place to be, great place to live. So just happy to be out there. Thank you.
Yeah, John. Great job.
And I'll have you know, we hired Domenico in December of 2021. He went through our field training officer program, flying colors. He's made multiple arrests while he's been out there. And he works under the command of Lieutenant Justin Foley in our patrol division. So he's doing a fine job, as is our next recruit. I'm going to take off one glove here so I can turn these. And I'd ask Yorktown Police Officer Carl Nuccelli to please step up. Carl Nuccelli graduated from Arlington High School in 2009, where he played on the baseball team. After high school, Carl attended Dutchess Community College, where he also played on the college baseball team, and graduated with a degree in liberal arts in 2012. Carl was a youth counselor and coach in Arlington during high school and in college. After college, Carl became a state correctional officer and worked at Greenhaven and downstate correctional facilities. Carl then joined the NYPD in 2017, where he worked patrol in the 40th Precinct. Carl then transferred to the Town of Poughkeepsie Police Department in 2020, where he was also a patrol officer. Carl was then hired by the Town of Yorktown Police Department in January of 2022. Carl's grandfather was a police officer in Yonkers, New York, for 38 years, and he has a rich family tradition of law enforcement. Carl, again, you know what? We interview extensively for these positions, and both him and Domenico, just great dispositions, free and easy smiles, all about working in a community that supports community outreach, which Yorktown, that's what we specialize in. And he also graduated from our field training program. He serves under the command of Lieutenant Justin Foley. He has also been involved in multiple arrests, and he's doing a fine job. I think, again, it's our gain that we found Carl, and I know he's going to have a long, successful career here in the Yorktown Police Department. So I'd ask everybody to give Carl a nice round of applause and welcome him to Yorktown. Woo! Diana, it's your time again. And I'd like to ask the family of Carl Nuccelli to please step up, including Mom, who's going to pin the badge on Carl's chest.
Proud Mom.
Chief's a little tall for me. Okay. Do you want to move up just a little bit so that everybody can see you? Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Carl Nuccelli,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of
police officer in the town of Yorktown,
police officer in the town of Yorktown,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Yeah, you should.
Congratulations.
Welcome aboard.
Officer Nuccelli, a few words.
All right, I also want to thank Chief Noble, the lieutenants, the sergeants, the town supervisor, and everybody else on the town board for hiring me and giving me this opportunity. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to serving the community. Thank you very much.
And one of the nicest things that I kind of left out was that Carl and they're replacing Domenico replaced Officer Paniccia, and Carl replaced Detective Bill Gordonier, both who left last May. It's been an extensive interview process, and the nicest part is that both of these officers were recommended, by some of their peers that worked here in the police department. So it really has, and it's been, they've been great recommendations, and they really are an asset for us. So we continue to just get better. Now I'd like to go over a few things, and I know we had a media release, a press conference last week, but once again, I'd like to introduce the First Responders Alert Registry here in Yorktown that we initiated early this month. So far, I think about 30 people have joined, and we're hoping that as we plug this along and advertise it a little more, that more people will consider joining. And I'm also hoping that maybe, the school districts, I have discussed it with Dr. Hatter, and he loves it, and I'll have discussions with Dr. Gagliardo to see if they want to share this with their school community. But what it is, it's a unique plan to assist Town of Yorktown residents with special needs and emergency situations. The goal of this program is to reduce emotional trauma, fear, and conflict when first responders have contact with special needs residents by providing responders with essential information before arriving. Police agencies are constantly seeking to improve relationships with the special needs community, whose members may be more likely to be misunderstood or injured during law enforcement actions. This voluntary and secure database contains personal information about individuals with special needs, such as diagnoses or communication preferences, and will help law enforcement officers respond more effectively to situations involving individuals with special needs. How does it work? It is 100% voluntary. I repeat that. 100% voluntary for people to join. To register, an individual must complete the First Responders Alert Registry form and submit it to the Yorktown Police Department, either in person, by mail, or via the Yorktown Police Department website. Our website address is www.yorktownpd.org. If you go on our website, it is front and center. You cannot miss it. And I know, Town Board Supervisor, you've placed it on the town website.
Correct.
Which I thank you for. We recommend that a photograph of the person with the special needs or disability is included with the registry form. Parents and caregivers may enroll a person of any age with any type of medical condition or disability, including but not limited to autism spectrum disorder, Alzheimer's or dementia, bipolar disorder, or Down syndrome. Adults with disabilities may also enroll themselves. The personal information contained in this registry will remain confidential. It will only be used to help an individual in the event of an emergency. It will not be used or result in the alteration or change in standard police, fire, or EMS emergency procedures. We will keep all personal information registered in our First Responders Registry secure files. When a police officer has contact with a person listed on the registry, Yorktown Police Communications can provide officers with the information needed to better interact and communicate with the resident in need, as well as provide the officer with the person's contact information. It is the responsibility of the Yorktown Police Department Staff Division to monitor incoming registry forms and to log that information into our computer-aided dispatch system. The name and address of the resident, as well as the information about their special needs, will be added to the alert tab in our CAD system. So what that means is when we get a call, if it involves this person with special needs, God bless you, if it involves the person with the special needs, a portion that pops up on our screen will alert us that this person with the needs is in our registry. The desk officer or our dispatcher at that time will ask the officer responding to the call or prior to response to call the desk and receive this information so that we can share that with the officer responding that the person with special needs may not like eye contact, may not, may be startled with, certain noises, may be alerted by the uniform, whatever tidbits, can be added. It may say if they're lost, they may have an affinity or be drawn to water. They may, what we've learned in law enforcement is that, people on the spectrum tend to have an idea of where they're going. They have sought out their target. And if if the adult or the caregiver can give us that information, it gives us it gives us a big head start. Right. And it also allows us, again, we talk about win-wins, and it's a win for the person in the registry and their family, and it's a win to the police officers that you see behind me, because it allows them to treat the community as well as they can and to figure out how to safely get through this call for service, finish their tour, and get home to their families. Right. So I'd like to encourage people to please, you can visit our website. I know we threw a lot of information out there. All of this is on there. You can go through the application process. I'm encouraged. Like I said, we've had 30 people, maybe even more now, that have signed up, and I look for a great deal more.
Chief,
And
I just want to let you know that the Town Food Security Task Force is also talking about helping those who may not have Wi-Fi that come through the pantries sign up. And we're going to try to find a way so we can set up on the next route a computer so that we can actually log it in for them.
Excellent.
Because there's a lot of people that have, there's a combination that may have also food security issues that also can be parallel to other disabilities.
And what I'm encouraged about is that we now have the technology to make this a reality, and I wouldn't feel comfortable doing it other than knowing that I have the best men and women in our police department that I have full faith and confidence in, and you see many of them here tonight in support of their brother officers being sworn in. They do an excellent job day in and day out, and they will do an excellent job managing this registry and just bringing exemplary service to the community, to the Yorktown community. So again, feel free to review all the information that I've provided on our website. And if anybody has any questions, I'm usually pretty easy to find. You can call me, and I'll certainly get back to you with any questions that you may have about the First Responders Alert Registry. Any other questions from the board?
No, sir. Chief, I got to tell you how heartwarming it is to have this ceremony tonight.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're finished with your remarks, but I'm going to interject myself.
I'm
here.
almost done.
You want to know why? Because it's the first time that we've had this in the town board meeting. But please continue.
No, and just a couple things before I circle back, and I always try to finish on a high note. But if all of you coming in here may not know this, what this photo is up on our television screen, and Tom, if you could put that out on on the TV on this feed, that'd be wonderful. But if you look around at our police officers in this room, you'll see many of us with beards. And I know I shaved mine prior to this meeting out of respect for this ceremony. But many of us have beards, and the female officers can wear some nail polish, or we relax the hair. And it's not just us; it's also our office assistants and our dispatchers. We contribute to a cause just about every month. It started out with No Shave November and then Don't Shave December, and it's morphed into, hey, I know somebody who needs something, and I know somebody who's down and out and really needs our help. And we collect each month. Anybody who wants to grow or anybody who wants to relax dress, it's totally voluntary again. And I believe we're trending close to, since 2017, collectively have raised about $80,000 from this police department that we've spread out to the community. Sadly, today, the young man that you see there in the middle, that's Devin Williams, and he had cancer. He used to play football for Detective Finn up in Arlington, and just a super kid. He came to visit us this one day. We collected for him and gave the Williams family our donation, and it was our pleasure to meet him that day. And he was going to SUNY Albany. He was a meteorology student. Smile, as you can see there, that would light up a room, and just a wonderful personality. And sadly, he lost his fight to cancer on Easter Sunday. And he was just, in meeting him that day and his family, just wonderful people. And to know that, the family actually included us in his obituary, thanking the Yorktown Police Department, I just wanted to pay that back tonight to his family and recognize him, and just to tell him, and his family, he was special to us. He was one of us. We say to everybody who we donate to, you're part of the Yorktown family. You're part of the Yorktown Police Department family, and they are. And I just want them to know that we're thinking of them tonight. All of the officers behind me, it was a sad day for us today learning that he passed, but we celebrate his life, and we thank him for being a part of ours. So thank you for allowing me to speak of Devin and his family this evening.
Any recipes?
Two more things. What I like to bring to the public's attention, and I do this because, again, sadly, I'm reading a National Fraternal Order of Police bulletin, and it's a new report. It was put out earlier this month that as of April 1st, 101 police officers have been shot in the line of duty, including 17 fatally. That's just so far in 2022, according to this report. The statistic is a 43% increase compared to officers shot during the same time frame last year. It's a 63% increase compared to the numbers in 2020. It's important to remember when we look at these numbers, they represent people who are fathers, mothers, sons, and daughters. The 5 states with the highest number of officers shot and killed in the line of duty this year are Arizona, Texas, New York, Georgia, and Washington State. I just bring this up because I couldn't believe it when I saw it. And you know what? The men and women behind me, they work 24/7. They do a tremendous job for this community. And we all keep them safe. And it's incumbent upon all of us. You know, me and my lieutenants, we talk about it every day. Every staff meeting, we talk about officer safety. But I'd like to thank this town board and the Yorktown for Community for having our backs. And we know they do. And they constantly are sending either food, letters of encouragement, or emails. And you know what? Their eyes are going to keep us a lot safer here in the town of Yorktown. So I just wanted to put that out. I wanted to mention it, to thank our community for their support, and to just put these numbers out there, because it's just, sometimes they get lost. You know, everybody tends to look for a soundbite or a press clipping, and you know, usually it's the cops dishing out the punishment, and you know, that's just not an accurate narrative. And every now and then I get to say something, and tonight is it. So I thank you for allowing me to say that, and thank you all for having our backs and keeping us safe and allowing us to do our jobs the best that we can. And I'll end on 2 positives. I like to circle back and end it in a positive way. I'm proud to say that our Unity Tour team is back. That'll be Officer Dan Kane, Officer Samantha Gilbert, and Sergeant Sam Sansone. They will be pedaling from Ground Zero to Washington, D.C. on or about May 9th, I believe they begin their journey. Detective Tom Byrer and I believe Sergeant Mark Rapisarda are going to work in a support manner to escort them down there to D.C. We'll be sharing a fundraising page in the very near future to try to raise money. They raise money not only to support their journey, but primarily for the law enforcement memorial wall. And what that wall does, their T-shirts that they sell, it says, "We ride for those that died." And it supports the men and women who were slain in the line of service, supports their family, and the Law Enforcement Museum. So anybody who chooses to donate, it will be to a good cause. And like I said, when I get the link, I will share it to the Yorktown Police Department Facebook page. And if you guys can share it amongst yourselves, it's an excellent cause. And I'm proud, again, that our members participate in such a noble effort.
Chief, will they be doing a event like they've done in the past?
I'm not quite sure, because they're running out of time, and you know, with COVID, with the COVID, it was tough to do an event. So I think it's going to be you know, just an online thing where they show a picture and give you a link and explain what they're doing. So I tried to get that out there this evening to bring it out to the public. And lastly, what I'm also happy to say is that we're going to be back out there August 2nd, National Night Out, our second one. Last year it was a pretty good party. And this year we're looking to, you know, really kick it into gear. We're going to have it at the Albert A. Capellini complex and Jack DeVito Memorial Field. So we're going to be taking that over on August 2nd.
All right.
If you're walking on the track that night, well, you know what? I don't think there's going to be much room. So why don't you come out and party with us? You know, it's a police community evening. You get to know a few of our officers. There'll be plenty of us there. You can chat us up. We always enjoy meeting and speaking with the public. The Yorktown PBA, once again, they're going to be out there with the grill, with the hot dogs and hamburgers. This year we'll probably get, you know, some food trucks. And I know Mike O'Neill from, you know, the Mr. Softy, he's going to be there again. Who knows? There may be an ice cream emergency.
Oh, hey now.
The town board might move their meeting.
We have a meeting that night?
Yeah, you need
Yes.
to you need to move that. But
Maybe that'll be abbreviated.
Maybe we'll do it outdoors there.
Yeah.
but
We'll do it.
Yeah, we should do it there.
again, that's what I have this evening. I'd like to thank you all for allowing me to present, to jump the line a little bit. I'd like to thank the people who are here for you know, solar and whatever else you got going on here. And you have plenty. I saw the agenda. But you know what? And I'd like to thank the men and women of the Yorktown Police Department who came out tonight to support me, the Honor Guard. You know, just it shows a lot of camaraderie, and it's not made up. These they all enjoy each other's companies, and I enjoy going to work every day, working with them, and I try to do the best I can for them, and as do you, the board and the community. And I want to thank them, and have a very safe, healthy, and pleasant evening.
So one last thing, Chief. Hold on, one last thing. I just, you know you're not going to get off that easy, right? So I want to thank Chief Noble, and I want everybody to join with me and wish him a happy birthday because yesterday was his birthday. Let's give him a big round of applause. I think I'm in trouble.
All right.
Eating tickets for Sergio for the rest
There
of the
you
month. All right.
That's right, baby.
Well, Chief, I just wanted to say, as I was saying before, I just want to say how heartwarming it is to see the police department here again. It's been too long. COVID's prevented us from doing these types of events. We had a great event up at Granite Knolls, which we are looking forward to echoing once again. But we know, this community knows, the incredible level of professionalism that you and your entire agency display every single day. The new initiative is really an incredible one. I think it's going to help build even more trust within the community. I mean, I think that there's already a high level of trust with your police agency. As you say, help us help you, and the public always responds. But this new initiative, I think, will take it to a whole new level. And I was actually with the St. Pat's seniors this morning. One of the things that I wanted to mention that was brought to my attention also, for those adults, hard of hearing, is that one of the possible things that we can register if an adult is hard of hearing?
Why not?
I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a great idea.
Yeah.
And that'll also help when you're responding to calls. But it's our phrase you and I think live by, which is lead from the front. And this is something that you've taken to heart and something that the police department, I think, exhibits every single day. And we are so proud of all of our police officers. We welcome our new police officers. We expect nothing but greatness from them. We expect them to have a very long and successful career, and we welcome you here to the town of Yorktown. And it's great that we have Dom, born and bred, Yorktown native. You know I love that. And Carl, I got to tell you, Greenhaven, man, I went there once, and it was a tour, by the way.
No,
it
I
wasn't.
locked him up.
It was a tour, by the way.
Don't let him fool you.
I went on a tour, and when those doors closed behind my back, oh man, that was a feeling I will never ever forget. And so to have you here with us now is a great blessing for this community. And again, we wish you nothing but a successful and safe career. So thank you for joining our force. And again, to all of our officers, and I see you out in the field all the time, especially Campion's beard. And and Foley's. Foley's got a good beard. Lieutenant Foley's got a good beard going too. Thank you. Thank you on behalf of our community. Thank you for keeping us safe. Thank you for always being there when we call. To the Chief's point, we do hear, and there is a lot of unfortunate rhetoric out there, but we know it's fact. And the fact is, you are the best. That's how I feel. That's how this community feels. And never doubt it for a second. So thank you for your service to this community. No, it doesn't go unnoticed.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
And as they exit, let's give them another round of applause, please. We're going to take a 5-minute recess so that the family members can exit, and then we'll begin the rest of our meeting tonight.
saying. If you wanted a set number,
You're
then I would
disrespecting.
find
Can
it.
you say that into the microphone, please? No, I don't
Because
want to do
I
Jefferson.
just shoved you in and
Because
I
it's
realized
Sergio.
you're coming home from home.
Oh,
But
listen.
if you have a set hour,
You fixed the. You, Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to resume the town board meeting for April 19th, 2022. We will give just short, I hope are short reports from the town board. I did want to just let residents know that I joined some of our partners from NYSEG at their Blue Sky meeting just the other day. I did raise the issue because I've heard from many residents regarding again, utility costs and utility rates, and the rates that the bills that people are getting, whether it's Con Ed or NYSEG, are still very, very high. And NYSEG has informed us once again, and I'm just going to read directly from the memo that I asked for them to explain the increase, that NYSEG is a delivery service. They are regulated by the Public Service Commission, and the supply is experiencing a rise due to the electric market rate changes, including inflation, the conflict in the Ukraine, and other factors. NYSEG purchases a supply rate at market rate and does not make any profit on the supply charge. It's simply a pass-through cost. NYSEG makes money only on the delivery charge that is regulated by the PSC. So again, this is very similar to what we saw in February when we were with Con Ed. This is the production of electricity remains very, very high, whether you're a NYSEG customer or a Con Ed customer. But I did want to make sure that we reported back to the residents, because, again, Yorktown is only one of two municipalities in Westchester County that has both Con Ed and NYSEG, Bedford being the other. So we did hear from residents in Yorktown who are NYSEG customers asking about that, and we did get an answer. I did want to remind everyone that that town taxes are due at the end of this month, April 30th. You can pay online. You can send in a check. You can drop off a check to the drop box, which is located in the back of Town Hall. You can also come in and pay and anytime between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. And go to the tax receiver's office, and our staff will, of course, assist you in any way that they can. We did send a letter. The town board and the highway superintendent sent a letter to DOT last month to asking them to address 3 specific items. And again, these are from constituent concerns that we've heard from consistently. The first being, while it's not technically the town of Yorktown, Route 6 on the north side of the town, Route 6 heading towards Baldwin Place, there has been an enormous amount of litter, roadside litter, on that stretch that we've heard from many residents about. We've asked the DOT to look at the feasibility of a traffic light at the T intersection of Route 35 and Quaker Church Road. That is an intersection that also gets intersected by the North County Trailway. And for those who try to make a left off of Quaker Church Road, It is obviously a very challenging intersection to navigate, especially when you throw in the pedestrian crossing that's right there, which is used frequently, and we really enjoy that North County Trailway. So we did ask DOT to take a look at that, as well as a traffic light at the exit ramp of the Taconic State Parkway southbound onto Underhill Avenue. There was an accident that occurred there, and line of sight is a bit of an issue there. We did, again, consult our highway superintendent on these things, and line of sight is an issue there as well, so we did ask them to look at the feasibility of a light there again, that's the southbound exit ramp from the Taconic onto Underhill Avenue. So we just wanted to keep everyone apprised of that. Once we have an answer from DOT, our partners at the Department of Transportation, we will, of course, relay that accordingly. I wanted to also, for our friends in Mohegan Lake, our Highway Superintendent, Dave Paganelli, and I hope I'm not stealing from your report, Highway Superintendent, but we visited Mohegan Avenue today. We recognize that there's a significant flooding issue right at Mohegan Avenue, really at Mohegan Avenue in Sagamore. It's a danger when it rains. The lake is flooding over into or onto Mohegan Avenue, and it's causing a significant hazard. And so the Highway Department has ordered temporary signs, and we are investigating a more permanent solution. But I just wanted to raise it for any of the motorists who are driving through that area. Again, if you're coming up Mohegan Avenue past, making the left over by CVS off of Route 6, going into Mohegan Lake, once you come down that little hill, there is significant runoff by the lake. And so it's important that you're aware of it. It's important that you're using caution when you're driving through this section of the road. Again, we're going to be having signs installed there.
But especially at night because there's no light.
But especially at night, that's my biggest concern right now.
Yeah.
At night, it's a significant hazard. But just know about it. We're getting the temporary signs, and then our highway department is investigating a more permanent fix that we can hopefully bring forward once we receive some ideas and estimates. A vaccine clinic is scheduled again for this Thursday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. over at the Capolini Center. Anyone who wants a booster or a second booster, we have that available. I also wanted to remind everyone that the Arbor Day, well, it's a bit late, but the Arbor Day poster submission was due today, and the Arbor Day ceremony is still on for April 29th here at Town Hall. Let's see. And then lastly, I just, again, I mentioned earlier about the St. Pat's seniors visit that I had today. It was interesting because I took a little poll myself of those in attendance, and I asked what's the best way to communicate with our seniors. It was overwhelmingly email. And then I asked, well, how many people are on our email list? And it was very underwhelming. So we want to make sure that people know that you can go on to the YorktownNY.org website. You can go under the How Do I tab and sign up for our public notices. That's how we continue to communicate all of our events, all the services that we provide. And it was very clear to me that even though email is the best source and best way of communicating, at least with that particular group, that I don't think people understand or know how to actually sign up to receive the town notifications. So whether it's about town board agendas, whether it's about vaccine clinics, whether it's about whatever town issue it might be, that's the best way to get that. And then I'm going to also just add, while you're there, there's also a link there for the Nixle alerts. Always important to sign up for the Nixle alerts as well. And I said I wanted to make it an abbreviated report, and so with that, I will turn it over to Councilman Diana.
Thank you, Supervisor. If anybody missed the presentation given by the chief, the first responders alert registry is one of the best things I've heard come along in a long time. For those of you that have either stood behind the badge or have to respond to a call in an ambulance or a fire truck, you're always wondering what you're going to contend with on your way there. If you have a little bit more knowledge, it's always a good thing. And this is one thing, if you folks, and it's voluntary, if you'd like to voluntarily give information for a person that has special needs, or you're the caregiver for the person who has the special needs, please, this is confidential, and it's only for our police who are responding to give you a hand. And there are many things that people have special needs about that we don't know. So that's one thing. We had a great Easter egg hunt here, and if I'm not mistaken, Ed, was that the 70th Easter egg hunt? 60.
No, 40th, I think it was.
40th. Which was
70,
70th. What the heck am I thinking? Maybe I was thinking the age of the Easter Bunny. I'm not sure. But I'm not sure about that. So anyway,
Very nice.
I'll pay for that one.
Yes, you will.
Yes, I will. Yeah, he's going to plow snow right into my driveway. I see it coming. The adaptive playground up at Granite Knolls, folks, it's really coming along. Really, really great. Every day, it's like they're putting it up in big sections. They're going to be gone for a few days, I believe, right, Diana? And they're letting the concrete set up and so on and so forth before they start putting down the matting, so to speak, the protective surface. That's going to be great. I can't wait for the opening. It's going to be hopefully sometime in May, I believe, if everything goes right.
Memorial Day.
Memorial Day.
That's our target.
I'm just going to touch on this one thing for constituent concern. The road that goes from New Road to East Main Street in Shrub Oak past the Acme Shopping Center. That is a private road, okay? Today I went through there. I'm pretty sure I only saw the roof of a Mini Cooper in one of the potholes. And Dave is
Volkswagen in there as well.
a Volkswagen also. Okay. Dave is full aware of this, but it is a private road, and we have been working on it. He's going to touch on that. That's all I have.
Excellent. Councilman Lachterman.
Sure. This Thursday is our Holocaust Remembrance event right here at Town Hall, 7 p.m. Esther Geitzel, who was born in 1929 in Poland, will be our keynote speaker. I highly recommend it. We will also, thanks to our AV team and our town clerk, will be able to broadcast this live and have it taped for prosperity as well, and that'll be available on the town website. Once again, Thursday, the 21st at 7 p.m. On Sunday, the 24th, the Sons of the American Legion will be having their fundraising breakfast, usually the third Sunday of the month, but because of Easter, pushed to the fourth this month. That's from 9 to 11. It's a $10 donation, and all the money raised supports veteran services. May 7th, the Lions will be holding a Kentucky Derby Day at the American Legion. I believe you could find the information on the Yorktown Lions website. That money will be raised for children's services, and there's actually a matching grant from Lions International that the Yorktown Lions are trying to get to help with our kids in the community. And the American Legion, or the Sons of the American Legion, is also doing their, I don't know if you get that, Tommy, or not, they're doing their military tribute banners again this year. They'll be hung up for Memorial Day. They'll run through Veterans Day. It's a great way to recognize someone in your family that has served in our military. I'll put the cards out by the counter on the way out this evening. In addition, they will also be doing the Fields of Honors with the flags, the American flags. And please note that you do not have to have served to have an American flag in your honor. That could be anyone in the community. There are fields right out here on 118 in front of the Caramont building. There's one on Veterans Road across from the American Legion Hall. We have at Granite Knolls, at Downing Park, and we also have at Railroad Park, and at our library. At Railroad Park, behind the flags by the statue, you'll see 13 poles erected, and those will have flags on them. Those are in honor of the 13 soldiers that were killed last year in Afghanistan during the retreat, and the Sons of the American Legion did that last year on Veterans Day to do that in remembrance and in honor of those soldiers. So it's a great program. Any information, sal1009.org, Sons of the American Legion 1009.org. You could look them up with a search as well, and all the information is on their website.
Thank you, Councilman. All set?
Yep, all set.
All right. Councilman Esposito.
Well, I know it just won't warm up out there, but spring is in the air, and this Saturday is going to be a very busy Saturday. So let's pick up on a couple of events. Between 11 and 5 at the Jefferson Valley Mall, or the Valley, the Home Lifestyles Expo with the Yorktown Chamber is on. So there's going to be a bunch of vendors there. There's going to be some art, I believe. A lot of stuff that's going to be going on there. It's a lot of fun, and there's going to be a lot of vendors for stuff that you could do around the house. So that'll be a lot of fun. The Sorrentino Cup is our annual tradition where Yorktown plays Lakeland, and it's in honor of the Sorrentino family who lost their son many years ago. The ceremony will be at 1:15. It will be at Granite Knolls, and the game will follow shortly thereafter. As well, on Saturday the 23rd, Ryan Vogel of Troop 173 is going to receive his rank of Eagle Scout. So that's exciting for him. So kudos to Ryan for all the hard work. There is a blue and gold ceremony at the VFW on Veterans Road, and that's going to be at 6:30. And again, I want to just say congratulations to our new officers, Domenico Donati and Carl Nuccelli. And Ed, I wanted to thank you for putting the Holocaust Remembrance. I know you're very passionate about it. You speak about it all the time. And matter of fact, you were speaking about some points earlier today about the candle lighting. So tell me about the candle lighting.
Well, I don't want to wreck everything from the ceremony, but we do light candles in honor of specific groups, our survivors, families of survivors, our military, and the children of the future. And we have people that come up and light those candles. So it is to me an important part of the ceremony that we shed light where there is evil to cast it away. And to me, that's almost as important as the speaker that comes in. That we don't forget and that we take up that no pun intended, that torch united.
Yeah, no, it's a great event, and again, thank you for putting that on. I know you're very passionate about it. So we'll be out and about this weekend. So hopefully we'll see you around a bunch of these events that are happening in Yorktown.
And just in case you weren't super busy that day, we have Saturday morning, the Battle of Yorktown cleanup. I know that PAC 164, my son's one of the Cub Scouts there, will be there for cleanup at Junior Lake Pool. And they'll start those around 9:30. Then there's the Pinewood Derby at the Yorktown Grange Fairgrounds at 2 p.m. And on Friday evening, you'll head over to the Grange Fair to see the cars that are going to get weighed in, and that should be super fun as well. There's also a jamboree and a cookout on Saturday at 5:30. I mean, Yorktown's the place to be on Saturday. So if you just go outside, you'll find somewhere to go. And then on top of that, on Friday, right, April 29th, between 10 and 2 at the Junior Lake Pool.
No, not Junior, at Shrub Oak.
I'm sorry, off of Sunnyside.
Yep.
Yeah, the Shrub Oak Pool, there'll be the shredder. So you're allowed approximately 3 boxes per family. Take advantage of it. It's a great way to go through your stuff, kind of do a little bit of paper spring cleaning, and then be responsible enough to recycle it and, kind of follow those 3 R's. I also want to congratulate our new officers and thank the community for not only welcoming them, but also knowing that this community not only stands for those that are out on the street supporting us, but also the homes that support them. I know that my kids pray every single night for all of our first responders, and you can see the turnout on how not only is Yorktown a community when it comes to inaugurating a new officer, but also a big family, which is really sweet. So, thank you. That's it.
I'm sorry.
Something else?
Well, I just one thing, and this comes from Tom Ciangelo, our man behind the curtain, with a reminder, and thank you, Tom, because I forgot and have to be there. Our senior advisory committee did not meet last week because of Good Friday and Passover, so they are meeting this Friday, Town Hall, 1 p.m. So anyone who wants to come for the senior advisory, of course, is an open meeting, and they will be discussing issues that deal with the seniors. They usually have a great guest speaker. Actually, last month was Chief Noble talking about some of the scams that are going around. So highly recommend being here for that.
Just one more quick thing. Folks, when you're using our facilities, our sports facilities, be it Granite Knolls, Legacy Field, Shrub Oak Ball Field,
The dog park.
the dog
Oh,
park,
the dog
The
park.
dog park.
whatever facility it happens to be, please pick up after yourself. Last week or the week before, we had a montage of pictures of litter that was left just up at Granite Knolls alone. It was pretty disgusting. Half-eaten pizzas, oranges that were spit out, and litter just strewn from one end to the other. A man goes up there every day and spends about 2.5 to 3 hours picking up everybody else's trash. It's not right. So, parents out there, please remind your kids, and if it's the parents that are leaving the stuff behind, please try to remember there's 20 garbage cans around Granite Knolls Park alone. All right, and numerous garbage cans scattered around most of the other parks. So you don't have to just throw it down on the ground and leave it and walk away. Or take it to your car and bring it home and put it in the garbage can. Thank you.
All right, Highway Superintendent Paganelli, before someone else jumps in.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty. Just take it now.
One
Take
more
it and
thing.
run.
One more thing.
Okay.
Take it and run.
Oh, my Lord. All right. In response to Councilman Diana, with respect to the road by Acme between New Road and East Main Street, we have been working on that for about 6 weeks now. I've been working with code enforcement. They've notified the owner of the mall, and the owner of the mall has made clear that they would fix that as soon as the asphalt plant's opened. Just earlier today, there was an email exchange between myself, a resident, explaining the situation, and the code enforcement officer. And the code enforcement officer, I had indicated that the plant's opened 3 weeks ago, and certainly we didn't need to continue waiting. And then the response from the owner was, well, their plant hasn't opened. So every plant in Westchester is open, so I don't know what their plant is. Also, I've been working with our town attorney, Mr. Rodriguez, and we have other pathways forward if need be. We can fix it, bill them back. We can take the road, if we were so inclined, by right of use. We can further insist that they take care of it. We can take the road by eminent domain. There's a lot of things available to us. We just would like them to fix it and be done with it. You know, we don't need to add another piece of road into our arsenal that the town taxpayers have to pay to maintain.
Right.
Okay, so that's that. Paving, I'll be doing a presentation on paving in the very near future because paving is going to heck in a handbasket. All right, that being said, right now we're up 23% the cost of what we were paying to pave last year. Okay, in addition to which, we're up about 12% on the amount of RAP that is in the asphalt that we're receiving. RAP is short for recycled asphalt products. So what they do is they take millings, they take asphalt shingles, they take rubber tires, they grind them up, they put them in the asphalt, which denigrates the quality of the asphalt. And in addition to which, it's all based on the price of liquid asphalt, which is very high right now. I believe in April it's $652, and I believe in May it was $602. So it's gone up about 9% in 1 month, which then increases the cost of the asphalt even further. And so since that's so high, they're putting less in the asphalt itself, so you have less liquid asphalt, more recycled products. So you'll be lucky to get 8 to 9 years out of your roads moving forward. To the supervisor's point, Mohegan Avenue, we are looking at some different options available for that. What has to happen there is, it's been a perennial problem for the last 20 years. When there's heavy rain, we checked the culvert. We trapped 2 adolescent beavers down by the winery. Adolescents, mind you. And
babies.
don't make me laugh.
I had to
All
stop
right?
for a second. I'm like, wait, what?
How did you know they were adolescents, Dave? Did they have
I am not
pimples,
the
or-
beaver trapper, but apparently you could tell they're adolescents by the quality of their work, believe it or not.
Okay.
Okay. So, yes, they were 2 adolescent beavers.
Did you let them go in the woods?
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah. You certainly, what do you think? We'd hurt the little beavers?
No, like, so they may show up again.
No,
So they can mature.
no. They were part of the beaver relocation program. So what has to happen out there basically is through the course of years, sediment has raised the level of the lake. You know, it's been extremely wet year after year, getting worse and worse, and we need to raise the road adequately so that it doesn't flood. It's a low spot there, right by, as the supervisor said, Sagamore comes out to Mohegan, and that's that. We're working on it, trying to get some ideas, and also our recycling yard is open. It opened last Monday. That's 2200 Greenwood Street. We have a new program where we're giving out permits, no charge to the residents, to expedite the entrance to the yard, particularly on a Saturday when we get 300 or 400 people up there, and they have to get their license number, their license plate number, their address, and it's a lot of back and forth. This and what are you bringing in? What are you taking out? Be very simple. You'll get a number on a, I guess it's a 6x8 card. Put it on your dashboard. Come in, you're number one. What are you bringing? What are you taking out? Simple. It cuts down like 50% minimal on terms of waiting in line. And that's it. Anything for me? Questions? No?
No, sir.
You sure?
We're
I'm
positive.
giving you guys an open door here.
Dave, do you have anything else?
I think I'm pretty much good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Dave. We're going to go to our Poet Laureate, John McMullen.
Woohoo!
Ukraine on everyone's mind. I have two very short poems. One that I wrote in 2019 and one that I wrote yesterday. The one in 2019 was on the occasion of a commendation to people from my old neighborhood who died in Vietnam being set up. Veterans Day statistics. I live in the town of Yorktown, New York. It's a mid-sized Lower Hudson Valley town with a population in 2018 of 36,900. If I multiply that by 1.5, I get 55,350 people. That's a lot of people. 58,220 Americans were killed in Vietnam, more than 1.5 times the number of people in my Westchester town. Happy Veterans Day. And I wrote this yesterday. Why and where? Why 77 years after Hiroshima, 80 years after the Cuban, or 60 years after the Cuban Missile Crisis, are we faced with the nuclear threat? Where is the humanity, the revulsion at the death so far, the horror at the death that could come, the Russian Brutus that the whole world needs? Thank you for putting up my rants.
No, thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
We appreciate it. Next, we'll go to courtesy of the floor. I'm going to repeat what I say every courtesy of the floor. 3-minute time limit. You don't have to wait for courtesy of the floor to raise an issue with the town board. You can come speak to me or any member of the town board. You can call 914-962-5722, extension 200 for my direct line. You can visit the town's website to get any of our email addresses. As a reminder, we may not always agree, but we once again ask for respectful dialogue, respect the town board, we respect all of you, and we welcome our speakers. We have one already at the podium. Would you like to say your name, please?
Oh, sure. Dan Strauss. This won't end up well tonight. Won't end up well.
It's good to see you, Mr. Strauss.
Diana, if you enforce the laws up at the parks, the most beautiful parks in the county, maybe in the United States, if you enforce the codes, maybe the people wouldn't leave piles of litter and dog crap. I never thought that my talking about mitigation would ultimately result in a false accusation of prejudice against me and many people in Yorktown. March 22nd meeting. I may go for 4 minutes. Maybe you can grant me that. Mr. Diana, quote, and I've got to be honest with you, he's a man of Indian descent, and it almost seems like there might be a little bit of prejudice going on, and I'm a little bit tired of it. I'll cut it very short. The man isn't Indian.
He's Pakistani.
Okay, we'll let Mr. Strauss.
I made a mistake.
Let Mr.
He's
Strauss.
not Indian. no one can be prejudiced based on his ethnicity if he's not Indian. No one can be prejudiced against that man. No one, not me, and no one in town except you know his people that know him. I'm sure they're not prejudiced against him. People who know him, who go to his gas station. But everyone in Yorktown, you insulted. That's my opinion. This is from the reporter. Diana, on April 5th. Diana, however, said that Strauss was not the intended target of his comments. Who do you think was? The man in the moon? Of course I was. I was the only person that talked about the man in 3 years. But that's okay. We could debate that. Rather, he was generalizing about how much of a backlash Hamed had received for his actions. Where is the proof? Where is the proof that there was any backlash of anything towards this man by anyone in this community? He told me that night that he was not Indian and that the only target to him was by the town of Yorktown in anything that he had done. And everything is on the record. It is on the record. What I have said is on the record. I will retract nothing. Everything about that situation is on the record.
Thank you, Mr. Strauss. Thank you, Mr. Strauss.
Not one more minute, huh?
Thank you, Mr. Strauss.
Yep, thank you. I appreciate it.
Anyone else for courtesy of the floor? Sir, come on up. State your name.
Good evening. My name is James Mecca. I live in Jefferson Village. First of all, I want to welcome our 2 new police officers, and may God keep them safe. I'm here today because on March 22nd, the town council passed 2 resolutions. One was against the closings of the 3 VA hospitals in New York. One in Brooklyn, one in Manhattan, and the other one close to us in Castle Point. Closing those 3 hospitals is a tremendous disservice to our veterans, especially our senior veterans with disabilities. As Ed told us last week, that they intend to send our veterans to Camden, New Jersey, which I looked it up, is about 135 miles each way. You have a toll, you're paying tolls. So basically it's taking 4 hours to get there, 4 hours to get back, and you have veterans with disabilities. So I thank you as a Vietnam veteran for doing that. The second resolution you passed was making March 29th Vietnam Veterans Appreciation Day. As a Vietnam veteran, all my veteran brothers, appreciate that very much because it means a lot to us the way we were treated. I was invited by Senator Harkman along with 8 other Vietnam vets to go to Albany on March 29th, and he sponsored a resolution making New York State Vietnam Veterans Appreciation Day every March 29th. When I came back to Jefferson Village, I was disappointed that we did not have a ceremony honoring the Vietnam veterans in Jefferson Village. We have a huge population of veterans and spouses, and some of them are Vietnam veterans. I would like to suggest to the town council that you get together with the Veterans Advisory Board, the commanders of the American Legion and the VFW, and other leaders of veterans groups in Yorktown, and try to hold a ceremony or a little gathering every March 29th from now on, whether it be at Veterans Park on Veterans Road or at the town hall or anywhere you guys decide to do it. So once again, I want to thank you. And I also want to say God bless our veterans, God bless our military, God bless the United States of America, and may you have a great and peaceful rest of your night. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mecca.
Thank
Anyone
you,
else
Jim.
who would like to speak for courtesy of the floor? Any other speakers?
Hello, Sarah Wilson,
Hi, Sarah.
31 year or whatever it is, resident of Yorktown. With all the things going on this weekend, I mean, everyone's calendar is really packed, but I'll throw one more thing out there.
What do you got?
We've got our Yorktown Repair Cafe.
I've been remiss. I'm sorry.
At Grace Lutheran Church between 11 and 3 at the corner of Curry and Gomer Street. So, if you're done doing the Battle of Yorktown and you're not ready to go to the
Derby.
Right, and you got a little time in between and you've got some broken items at home. We all see how much bulk trash is out on the roadways. And, why not try and see if something can be fixed before you add it into the waste stream? And we've got a great group of volunteers that are willing to take a shot at fixing whatever you bring in, and it's all free. So, again, this coming Saturday at Grace Lutheran Church, the Yorktown Repair Cafe.
Supervisor, your phone. Maybe they could fix your phone.
No, Verizon couldn't even fix my phone. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that. Any
Thank
other
you, Sarah.
comments for courtesy of the floor? Other comments? Going once, going twice. We'll make a motion to close.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Comments from the board?
On the closing of the three veterans hospitals, it is tragic that was even being considered. I do believe they backed off at Jim, but we're hoping. I thank Supervisor Slater joined me up at Castle Point. We went up there and actually had a press conference to make sure that it was known, because it was being denied, even though it was reported on through was it the American Military Magazine, Military Times?
Yeah, American Military Times.
Military
first
Times
reported it.
Yes, and it was so bad that someone not in the group having the press conference called the press and said, "Oh no, it's canceled," because they didn't want it getting out, because it's just tragic that would be the way we treat our veterans in our country. So as I said at your meeting the other day, Jim, at the Village, I highly recommend that if you're hearing of something, get out there, exercise your right to free speech, make sure your voice is heard. We will back in things like that 100%. Everyone on the board, I know. Feel,
100%.
One thing I know I could speak words for them in this case.
Can I just want to add to that. If you feel that at Jefferson Village there are many spouses of, or just veterans and their spouses and families, and you would like something to be held there, we'd be happy to discuss something like that as well. Because sometimes people are not as mobile or not as able to leave.
We're not going to, Mr. Mecca,
I'm just saying
please,
we'll
thanks.
talk about it. I'm happy to even, bring it there too, because I know there's a huge population.
Yeah, and I'd love to coordinate something with you and the town board. I'm sure will be in it, for the 29th. Moving forward, that'd be great. We've worked together.
Yeah.
Successfully, so.
Well, actually, Councilman, and I agree wholeheartedly, but you did a special event for Vietnam veterans for Veterans Day.
Yes.
Last year over at Lakeland High School. And it was the first time that we've done that as well, recognizing the Vietnam Veteran Memorial, which is over at Lakeland High School. So maybe that's something that we can expand on moving forward.
Yeah, I recall that. That was good.
Yeah, it was
that was a great
It was
event.
a very, very nice event. But obviously, first, Mr. Mecca, thank you for your service. Mission accomplished. Welcome home. And we appreciate all you've done in service to our country. The Vietnam Veterans Day up in the state capitol is a terrific event. Proud to be a part of that when it started, and I'm glad to see that Senator Harcum has continued a great tradition recognizing incredible Americans. Here in the town, again, we did recognize Vietnam Veterans Day, but I agree. I think we should look to expand that recognition beyond just a resolution. And as for the VA hospitals, we did hear from Senator Schumer on our municipal call. Senator Schumer has formally opposed the closure of Castle Point, citing the reduction in services as well. So I think that there is a lot of momentum building to prevent that closure from happening. And again, I just wanted to recognize Sarah Wilson, the Repair Cafe. I visited couple times. It's a really great event. And it's incredible to watch some of these people work, and they really do. They fix a lot of stuff, and so it's a fantastic opportunity. You know, if you have something that's not working properly,
Do you happen to know what the hours are?
11 to 3.
11 to 3. I'm putting it in my phone.
11 to 3. It really is worth the stop if you got something that needs a little tinkering and you can't quite figure it out. It really is worth making the time and effort to get over there to see if they can help you out with that.
I got to tell you, when I started in the IT business, you actually fix things. Now you just, it's a throwaway society, and it's a shame. I mean, you just throw everything out. You used to buy a case and then start with just an empty bare bones case is what we called it. And you buy the motherboard, you buy the daughter board, you buy the video card, you buy all of this stuff. If something went, you just change that one piece. Now it's just piled up at bulk. It's just it's a shame,
Any other comments? We're good?
We're good.
So we'll move on to resolutions regarding personnel. We will appoint Kieran Carney, temporary motor equipment operator in the Highway Department. We're going to appoint Robert Reddy to motor equipment operator in the Highway Department. We will appoint Michael Stigell to motor equipment operator in the Highway Department. We will appoint Jake Arcara to motor equipment operator in the Highway Department. And we will appoint Dennis Flynn III to heavy motor equipment operator in the Highway Department. We have a motion.
Motion.
Oh, excuse me. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And my apologies, we had one from closed. And I'll read it in its entirety. Be it resolved that Andrew A. Hetty is hereby appointed temporary to the Civil Service Title Maintenance Mechanic Sanitation, Job Class Code 0496-02 within the Refuse and Recycling Department, effective April 25th, 2022, to be paid from the Yorktown CSEA salary, Schedule A, Group 13, Step 3, which is $73,471 annually. We'll have a motion.
So
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Diana. Okay. So we're going to go to public hearings, but if we can just, I think it's important, I think if we can just swap the two. So we're going to start to convene a proposed local law, a public hearing to convene for proposed local law to amend Chapter 300 zoning entitled Electric Vehicle Charging Stations. We have our Director of Planning in the back, and we have our guests with us who brought this forward. Would you like to just introduce yourselves one more time and maybe give us a brief description of what the code change will allow?
Sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. And the public notice is being shown by our town clerk. Yes,
Thank
please.
you, Supervisor Slater. For the record, Kristen Motel from the law firm Cuddy and Fader on behalf of Volta Charging, who's the petitioner in this case. Sam Lee from Volta is here tonight. For the record, I'll just go through a brief review of the zoning amendment that's proposed. I know this is our third time, I believe, before you all, so you're familiar with the proposal. Volta is an electric vehicle charging infrastructure company, and they are seeking some text amendments to the zoning code to permit electric vehicle charging stations with electronic displays in commercial zoning districts, specifically, I think, the CRC and the C1 within the town. Right now, the zoning regulations don't contemplate EV charging infrastructure. And Volta's charging stations are unique in that they do provide free or subsidized charging. And it's universal. They can charge all sorts of electric vehicles. And in order to do that, they need to offset the cost of charging. And they do that by advertising content on the displays, which are on the EV charging stations. So what Volt is looking to do is facilitate this kind of EV infrastructure in a very positive way, in a very limited way, without opening the floodgates. The goal is to make it accessible only at retail centers. This sort of infrastructure has a very, very niche, limited market. They need areas where people have long stays so they can charge their cars and where there's higher foot traffic. Volta is obviously they run the biggest charging network in the country. They are very good at what they do. And we're just looking to make some amendments that are actually going to get rolled into gas station displays as well. So the infrastructure is for the two are very similar. You have a video at a gas station, you take the pump off and you have an ad for Cheetos and gas station TV playing. The EV infrastructure that's being proposed is a little bit different. It's static images, completely silent, but the two are proposed under the same legislation because they are sort of similar. So the draft language includes some limiting conditions for the EV charging stations. I'll let John Tegeter, your planner, talk a little bit more about what's being proposed for the gas stations. But the limited conditions address things like size, auto dimming, refresh rates, and provide some carve outs for the off-site advertising prohibitions that are currently in the zoning regulations and the illumination provisions as well. I also want to add that we did meet with the planning board last week, and I know they submitted a memo to you all with a favorable recommendation and a note on retaining control over site plan approval. There is actually a line in the proposed amendment that says compliance with these standards shall be regulated and maintained through site plan or special permit approval. An amendment there too. So the planning board would retain control over all of these proposals going forward for the EV charging stations. You approving this legislative amendment doesn't really open up a free-for-all that still needs to go through the planning board, site plan approval. And I don't know, Councilman Esposito, I believe you're at the meeting, if there's anything I'm missing from the planning board and their comments there.
No, I believe that the main point, one of the main points was, they want to make sure it didn't flood like the streets or the edge of the property lines and stuff like that, and that's why the whole site plan approval came in. And
exactly.
So I think you're spot on with that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so that's how the planning board will retain site-specific control over these amendments. And if you have any questions about Volta, I know you've all spoken to Sam before, but he's here to answer any questions the public may have too.
So, in addition to the planning board, we also received a memo from the Architectural Review Board. Have you seen these?
Oh no, I have not received that.
Yeah,
memo
so
yet.
we have one from the Architectural Review Board. They had no objection.
Okay.
The county said that it was a matter of local determination. The Conservation Board states that the size proposed of EV charging stations are out of character with our town and would result in visual pollution if sited in multiples at any one location. And the placement of EV charging station screens should be limited so that no more than 2 of the screens will be visible from any given point of view. Now, I'm guessing you haven't seen this as of yet.
No, I have not seen that.
John, have you seen the Conservation Board memo? Yeah. Okay. So
I haven't seen it either.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah. So I guess, do you have any thoughts, initial thoughts on that, on those comments from the Conservation Board?
Yeah, absolutely. I do. I think that the site plan approval process will address all of that.
That's
from
what
a
I'm thinking.
Site-specific perspective.
Yep.
Setbacks. I mean, obviously, Volta does not intend for these charging stations, and any company really wouldn't intend for these charging stations to be close to the right-of-way. They're supposed to be near a building entrance, so they're targeting foot traffic.
Right.
So I think the setback is a non-issue, and that can be determined on a case-by-case basis. In terms of the 2 per property or per business, that's something also that would be approved at the site plan amendment. I mean, Volta is looking at the mall. They're looking at 4, I believe, at the Jefferson Valley Mall, but that's 2 on each entrance. And I think when you're looking at it's kind of hard to put a limit on it overall for the entire town because, the mall is a very, very different site than the Staples Plaza. So
Agreed.
That would be my response. Yeah.
Okay. Any thoughts or questions for Kristen from the town board?
No, so I mean the screens will be on, right? Pretty much all the time. Is that right, or is it just when you step up and charge?
Right. So the screens would be on all the time.
Yeah, that was my impression of it. And at night they'll dim, right? They probably have some kind of a solar kind of, or they go by some data where it knows when it's really bright out, and it knows when it's a cloudy day. So and it'll adjust itself. It automatically adjusts and probably has some kind of a backup on it, right? It has probably some kind of a sensor, and if the sensor fails, it goes by some kind of data, right? Can you explain that?
Yeah, so exactly. So, I mean, we do it by time. And so, obviously during the day, during the wintertime, it's going to get darker sooner. So we use that information to automatically dim our stations.
Right.
Okay. I have a question for John. John, in regards to the site plan approval, I just want to make sure we're clear because town board oversees site plan for the mall.
The mall and a couple others, yeah.
Right. So
gas stations.
I just want to make sure that the town board's not forfeiting that authority over to the planning board.
No, not at all.
Okay. I just want to make sure that the town board
I would
understands
never
that, the public
ever think
understands
of
that.
even suggesting that.
Well, I just wanted to be I wanted to hear it from
Good
you.
answer.
I needed to hear it come out of your mouth,
It's
John.
He doesn't want any more on his plate than he has to have.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to make sure we're clear. Okay. Any other questions from the board to John or to Sam or?
No, look, I mean, we're talking about pretty much getting a free fill up, right? Because there's no charge for the person utilizing the charging station. I'd love to pull up to the gas station and get a free fill up. If anybody knows of any
Especially
area.
these days.
Especially these days. So
yeah.
No, I mean, I really, I think they're visually pleasing. I don't really have an issue. Yeah.
Okay. Then we will open up the floor for public comment. Again, this is on the EV charging stations law. When you come to the podium, please just state your name for the record.
Good evening, Susan Siegel. Okay, I have three types of comments, separate. One is, I guess, more directed to the town attorney, and that's the way that the law is presented to the public. It's very difficult to follow, okay? And this isn't the first time. I think the amendments to the solar law were written the same way, where you just say, I'm adding to section, 300-12, and then you say that. But for people who aren't that familiar with the laws, it's very difficult to see what you're doing, all right? And I think in the past, you have the full law, and you would say the underlined is new, or the new, and however you identify what you're repealing and what you're adding. And I got this late this afternoon because, unfortunately, they had forgotten to put it on the website, and I had to go back and forth, and look. So I would urge you in the future to please make it clearer for the public. In terms of comments on the law, the very first part where you're saying you're amending 193, section 10.2, which is a list. You're adding to a list of what types of signs are exempt, and you're just adding these EV signs, okay? But then if you go down to section 10.2, it says these are going to be permitted and are exempt from the requirements of this section, which requires a signed permit. It's very confusing. So if you're allowing them and you have conditions for them, why are you putting them in the first part and exempting them when you're not exempting them? You're allowing them without the need for a signed permit. So that's kind of a technical question, all right? Section 10.1 that deals with the time, temperature, date signs, you seem to be adding a new section, and I don't know how this differs from the existing time, temperature signs, which are allowed. I tried to compare words, but I might have missed something, so I don't understand the difference there. Down in the section where you have A through F, this very specific conditions about these signs, the last one says video or sound is prohibited unless permitted by an authorized board, okay? You either prohibit them or you permit them. And I think this is slightly too open-ended to allow video and sound, and I think you should take a look at that.
Mm-hmm.
All right? I know that the gas station ones currently do have
They have
sounds.
sound, right.
Whether you want to make a distinction between what goes on a fuel pump and what goes on these other signs, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you might want to consider that.
Mm-hmm.
And the video is more distracting. Again, the EV signs are different from the fuel pump signs, so maybe there's a reason to distinguish between that.
Mm-hmm.
Then I think the main concern I have is that you leave, there are no guidelines, no general standards for the location of these. I know what the applicant has said where they plan to put them, but there are no guidelines, okay? There are no guidelines to the number that could go in any one location. They might say, well, we're only putting 2 in the front of the JV Mall and 2 in the back, okay? But they could change their mind. And it's very flexible for the planning board when they do a site plan amendment. So I think you might want to consider some type of guidelines. I'm not saying I know what they should be, but I think you should consider them. X number of feet apart, or a limit of so many per acre, or something. But I don't think it should be left so open-ended. And again, the location of them, because this could be a safety issue. So I think you have to maybe do some more thinking about that. The other issue is content control, and I know this came up in several of the meetings. And with all due respect, and I know that you say, well, we're not going to have political, things, or other controversial issues, but that's what they're telling you now. There's no control. Is there something that you want to do? Do you want to add political or certain types of signs will not be permitted? Again, I don't have the answer, but I'm raising a question. And there's no mechanism if the town objects to this. I know they're on private property, but you're allowing this a very additional type of advertising. So I urge you to consider that. And then I would repeat, it's interesting to hear the conservation talk about visual pollution, which frankly, I think they are. I think the JV Mall, we've, in the whole renovation, which tried to revitalize the mall and make sure it stays in Yorktown, which we certainly wanted, a lot was done to relax the sign law, which if you've been here as long as I have, you know that they couldn't have the signs before, which kind of didn't make sense. But you're adding visual pollution. And I think that you may want to think twice about this for commercial benefit. I mean, we're very generous in the signs that we allow. So I think this needs a little bit more looking into. Then I have some very general comments. And I should say at the start that I don't own an electric car. And since the car that I have is relatively new, and given my age, I don't think I'll ever be buying one. Right? But I think they're a very good idea, and I know that they should certainly be encouraged. And the town board, the planning board, has allowed electric charging stations. It's not that they are not allowed, because I know we have them at the Staples Center. You're certainly putting them up at Granite Knolls. And since I don't have an electric vehicle, I don't pay attention to where else they might be. So they're good things, okay? And I know that people who buy electric vehicles, they know the issues dealing with the need for charging stations. They know the problems of locations, they know it's a growing field, and they certainly know that there's a cost involved. So the fact that this is going to be either free or subsidized for them, I don't think that's an issue of concern to the town board. It's an issue for the people who want to buy electric cars, that they have to deal with that issue. So I think you can support the concept of electric vehicles, which I think you should, and I applaud you for doing that and being open to them, and the planning board has had no problem. But do we want to add to the visual clutter of our commercial parking lots? So that's all I want to think about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Jay Kopstein. I don't think that we should place into legislation the number of charging ports. That means as the electric vehicle population grows, you've got to come back and change the legislation each time. There's a cost to it. That's first. Secondly, on content, there is a difference on private property that's not open to the public versus private property that is open to the public. I think council can describe it better than I can, but you have malls and airport terminals that try to restrict content and got beaten badly in court over it. Since content is an issue, and if the town board or the planning board puts into a permit something restricting content, I think something should be in the legislation requiring the vendor to indemnify the town if the town has to go into court to protect content. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Copstein.
Thank you, Jay.
Other comments? Any other comments? Comments from the board? Or John, do you have comments that you want to, based on some of the things that we heard today?
Getting old, John.
Oh my God, I'll tell you.
Sound like me.
Happens fast.
That
Just
70-year-old Easter bunny.
Make it worse than it is.
I'm going to be punished for that, I can tell.
Sometimes if I let this hair grow, it looks like ears too. But
Maybe we could take some lessons from the adolescent beavers.
Oh, boy.
So just to the one point about letter F, video or sound is prohibited.
Yeah.
That's purposeful, so that there's not this open-ended belief on the part of one of these vendors that they can change the static advertising to video at will.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, you're seeing them at gas stations, and so that's in there purposely that way, so that each board, and which will be mostly this board, because they'll do the gas stations, will authorize the video and the sound if they choose to. So it does separate them out, because I believe that a screen as large as the ones that we're seeing will not be pleasant to have video and sound on them.
No.
Okay, they're better static. The small ones when you're standing filling your gas tank, okay, not as intrusive. So purposefully written like that for that incident.
Thank you, John.
So this is my first time on the board, so I'm learning that sometimes you have to go and touch it. So I was really grateful that you gave us the address to go to the supermarket in Ridgefield, because I was like, I'm just going to go food shopping in Ridgefield and go look at it. And Susan, to your point, they were off, kind of not in the middle of like where carts and others were, and it was like static pictures of like what was on sale at Stop and Shop, so I did go and see, and I don't have an electric car, and I don't know, I don't know where my life's going to, but right now my cars are covering goldfish and children. But I do want to say that I did go to look at them to see, and I think if they did have volume, they would be invasive. It wasn't super bright. They were pretty sleek. They kind of look like if anyone sees these new innovative, my husband just bought a new Ram, like the dashboards now are just like these long panels, look like a big iPad sort of thing. My son thought it was interactive. It's not. So I do want to just point out that I am trying my hardest that, when we don't have all these wonderful events in Yorktown, to leave Yorktown and try to follow up, because the pictures were beautiful, but I had no idea what I was looking at, and I knew what a Tesla charger was. And to your point exactly, Susan, I have a lot of friends that have charging stations at their homes, and their friends use them, and they put in a new installation in boxes, because it is something that they have to take care of as well. They can't just be like, hey, we're on the map, POI on navigation, find me a charging station. It's new and it's innovative. So as much as, I'm not saying I have all of your who's, what's, where's, and what answered, but I do want you to know that I did go there. Right. And if anyone else is interested in going there, I thought they were, and that's a busy shopping center as well. Like it wasn't like the mall. People are going to the mall, people are walking the mall, there's more space. There, it's like an everyday 24-hour kind of in and out shopping. So I just wanted to point that out because I touched it. So.
I think if we want to foster the revolution and move into EV cars, it behooves the town to at least come up with policies and to foster these charging stations, because without the charging stations, the cars don't, they're not. If you can't get a charge, you can't get a charge. And right now, it's not as easy to drive around and stop at a gas station and fill up, with an electric car. And so if we want to promote renewables, and if we want to, kind of like foster an environment where we are moving away from gas and diesel, then I think we do have somewhat of a responsibility to, come up with ways where we can provide, the infrastructure for these things to succeed.
And with that being said, Councilman Esposito, I think I mentioned that I had gone to Bermuda and they had everything electric underground. And Susan, you wouldn't even know if they were electric. You wouldn't even know it was a charging station. It was so I understand this has an advertisement piece. So we're doing a purpose, but we're also following a dollar. And that's why it's a little bit more. But as we get smarter about this, and not to take business away from EV, there are these very simple plugins where it's just a certain amount of wattage, I guess, that's coming out of these, these outlets, and you don't even know that they're there, especially when we were saying, put everything underground kind of thing. Remember that? Hello? Yeah. That's kind of the start of it. It's there were these little things in these gorgeous trees that people were plugging their cars in, and I had no idea they were even there. So they definitely didn't have that site kind of, I say, pollution. So.
The advertising element is interesting. Any of you folks that have ever been down to White Plains, you notice as you're on some of the streets down there, and Ed, you could probably back me up on there, they actually have the signs hanging from the light poles that say, whatever it might be, Starbucks or whatever they may be advertising. And I never found them intrusive or anything else. I don't spend that much time in White Plains, but when I was down there, I noticed them, and they were quite informative. Now, this is a totally different type of thing where I believe they even have videos on them down there, don't they, Ed? Or short
I think
blip.
a couple of them do, but most of them are static.
Yeah. So I think that the static pictures, images are something that most people can contend with, and just the language of what is allowed and not allowed on them, I think, would be a good addition.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Well, I will say as well, and I hate to say this, but I agree with Sergio 100%. It's what I wrote down. It actually is our responsibility to worry about electric chargers and electric stations, because we do want to try to move as far as we can to lowering carbon emissions. So if we don't take that into effect, it has nothing to do per se with the people that have electric cars right now. It's looking at the future of our town and making those decisions going forward. And thank you, John. But the static pictures, not video, on these, lessens that. I also agree wholeheartedly with the fact that you can't. I think, Jay, you brought up the fact you cannot limit now, because this is going to be a growing evolution. And as a businessman, I absolutely agree with the fact that, the people that are putting these stations in now, these charging stations, should have a way to recomp. It should not just be the charity of your heart. Things need to be paid for and earned. That's how our economy works. And, I think there's some great things here, and love to see this moving forward, because I think it's really going to be defining for the town of Yorktown. It's going to be a growing situation throughout our evolution here, and I really want to see it move the right way.
I believe the Tesla ones that are down at the BJ's Plaza are brand specific, though, aren't they? They're not.
These actually have a hookup, different hookups.
Right. Yeah. So maybe moving forward, we part of our thinking would be that if there's going to be charging stations, they should be for all electric cars.
Be careful, Elon might buy you.
I hope so.
All right. But as for F, though, I just want to make the point that F, it is allowing, as part of the special permit approval, video and sound. So I just
want to be approved, right?
Yes, but I just want to make sure that the board is understanding of this, because we're not just saying, we understand that this particular one is static, right?
But we don't know where it's going to evolve.
You don't know where it's going to evolve. Right. I understand that. If you're trying to be forward thinking, that's fine. I just want to make sure that we're clear that there is a window for someone to come in with video and sound if that's part of their business model.
Right.
Yeah. So it's just something for your consideration.
And that's for us to decide whether we want to do it or not.
Right.
And I'm sorry, sir.
No, I'm sorry.
The point. Right now, like the mall, the gas stations, that's us. That's town board.
Right,
That's all town board. But I think our planning board, taking care of the other shopping areas,
Commercial sites.
the other commercial sites, I have a lot of faith in them. Look, we had conservation weigh in on the visual pollution in our town. So our boards are on top of it. We get some great advice in. Like I said, you have to sort of leave a little open-ended, as I have here, and open-ended for evolution, and let the town and planning board work with them as these things evolve.
No, I'm just reading to myself.
But there are also limiting factors in video and sound. If it's on private property, yeah, that's one thing. So if the mall wants to put, let's say, video and sound, and it gets approved, by the board, then that can happen. But if you think you're going to put a sign, a moving sign with video and sound that's facing, a street, that's illegal. The DOT will not allow that to happen. So if the concern, part of the concern is that they're going to litter the street, you can't even have, let's say, at the Staples parking lot, you can't have a sign that's so close to the road where you could see it as you're driving by. The only thing that's allowed by the DOT are static images, 8-second intervals that are PowerPoint slides. So you cannot have moving objects. Even forget about the digital aspect. You can't even have, like, let's say in the old days you had, one of the big guys that were at a gas station and they were pointing to the gas station with a moving arm. You can't have that. That's specifically denied by the DOT. So the old Amoco, right? I couldn't think of it. So there are other laws and applicable things that you have to abide by. It's not just, oh yeah, you know what, it's up to the planning board or the town board to say you can have video and sound, and then you put this big sign on the side of a road. You can't do it.
But Ed's point is very important about you have to plan for the future. There's a big thing going on now in the medical community that they dropped the ball on Alzheimer's because at the time that people doing the research weren't old. They concentrated on cancer, where they should have been doing both, because they weren't planning for the future. So Eddie's point about being ready to plan for the future, even though it's not our time, it's our kids' time and our grandkids' time, and to bring people to the town is extremely important.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Susan, if we can, just Mr. Moskowitz was getting up, and since he hasn't spoken yet, if you don't mind.
I don't have Alzheimer's yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Maybe
God
Mr.
forbid.
Moskowitz.
God forbid.
I know.
Paul Moskowitz, Yorktown. I'm happy to see that the town board is finally dealing with a 21st century issue.
Well, thanks.
And that's what electric vehicles are, and charging stations. But I think you've missed a few opportunities, because rather than have these go in ones and twos, what we can do is legislate that all new construction has to have charging stations. It's within your power to do that. And you could start with the overlay districts. I might have mentioned this before.
Yeah.
You have. You have.
Listening.
But you have the ability to require that charging stations go into new commercial areas, because electric vehicles may be a new interesting event, but pretty soon it'll be like when horses were converted into automobiles. Right now, only a few % of the population have electric vehicles, but predictions are that within 10 years, half of the vehicles sold are going to be electric vehicles, which doesn't mean that half the vehicles on the road will be electric, but it means that they will grow unless everybody's predictions are wrong. So I think you can get in on the ground floor and make Yorktown an exemplary town by requiring charging stations.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
And on that note, Councilman Lachman and I have had a couple conversations about
Exactly that
topic, about how we can how we foresee that type of policy coming together, but I think that it's one that's going to take more than just this one moment. So I think let's focus on the legislation at hand. But I don't think you're wrong, Mr. Moskowitz.
I just hope that you're as right about electric vehicles as I was wrong about my 8-track tapes.
That is funny.
You
I
still
just,
play them, I
just
think,
want to
don't you?
make it clear that I hope you understood that I support the electric
yeah.
charging
Oh,
stations.
yeah.
And I commend you. And I've been at planning board meetings where they are approved. Okay. The issue is not whether you like them and you're going to promote them. The issue is the advertising. And the only reason for the advertising is because he wants to make it either free or subsidized.
Right.
And what I'm saying is that when people make the decision to buy an electric vehicle,
Oh, they should pay for it.
they understand the charging issue. And as you said, they either put the charging thing in their house, or they know it's going to cost them money. And if they're reasonable consumers, they check out what the charging stuff costs. So we are not anti-electric vehicles. I applaud you for promoting them. So I want to make that clear. The issue about the video and sound, okay? And I understand what John Teggett has said about the gas stations. And as I tried to say before, I understand the difference. So maybe the Section 8 has to be a differentiation. Maybe you have to say the audio and video is okay on the gas station pumps, but maybe not on the other ones.
Or screens a certain size.
Well, the screen sizes are totally different. I mean, they're most of the gas stations I go to don't have those. Only the the mobile there has it. But the photos that I've seen of the EV stations that are going to go into the mall and the shopping centers are 7 feet high. I mean, that's with a large screen. It's very, very different. So I think if some of you have any concern about leaving the door open, because I could see an applicant coming and making a very good case why they should do it, and it's going to be up to the planning board, or
the town board,
or
but
the town board, whether it's the CRC or.
I just wanted to make sure. Just to be clear, I just wanted to make sure that the town board was understood that there still is an opportunity for someone to come in with video. And I think at the time that transpires, the town board or the planning board is going to be able to make that decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what I'm saying is I think you could make that decision even in the legislation, that to say that video and sound in those two districts, as distinguished from the gas station pumps.
My only concern, though, is that my only thought, and just going back to what some of the other board members have said, is on the evolution of technology. We know that technology is advancing so quickly. True. What we legislate today is going to be obsolete tomorrow. And they're already going to be on to 2-3 different, renditions of what we're talking about today. So I think there needs to be, since we're talking about new technology, some flexibility in the law. Some flexibility for the industry to grow without being restricted by our own code. So I just think that we need to be. I think we need to be a little. We need to have a little bit of a
flexibility there.
More of a vision of understanding that this is an evolving industry, and again, rather than being so restrictive in it. It's because there are still safeguards. There are still safeguards through the site plan process, through the site plan approval. So I just also want to make sure that we're clear. And John, correct me if I'm wrong, or Adam, correct me if I'm wrong. But based on the site plan approval process, either the town board or the planning board are still going to be able to take restrictive actions based on a site by site.
Oh, absolutely. But I'm saying that from a legislative point of view, you might want to put in some more guidelines. And I don't know what they are.
But it's hard to put guidelines on things.
On the future.
Well, no. I understand what Susan's saying. She's talking about guidelines as to where on the properties they should go.
For these types.
And I understand that, but I go two things. One, I think it's hard to legislate that in certain ways because you're talking about different sites, right? So what we legislate for the JV Mall may not be applicable to the BJ Shopping Center. Number one. Number two. I go back to the fact that this is a quickly evolving industry, and what might be applicable today is not going to be applicable tomorrow, next month, or next year. But the site plan approval process is going to provide the safeguards to make sure that whatever the technology is at the time is going to be put in an appropriate, and you also mentioned safety. Obviously, safety is something that gets looked at as part of the site plan approval process. All those things, and I don't need to tell you this, obviously, but you know those are all things that get taken into account. So I just don't think being as restrictive, and it's not so much being restrictive, but trying to figure out the nuances of and dictate each site where they could or could not go. I think it's better left on the site plan approval process.
Well, again,
And
this is specifically talking about these video ones with the advertising. If the JV Mall or some vendor wanted to come in and put up a string of 10 charging stations in some back portion of the board, legislation wouldn't be needed. They would go right to the planning board.
But it's still site plan approval.
It'd be site plan approval.
Just like
and
it is
could
now.
Put in as many as they want, and they would charge whatever the going rate is, which the vehicle customers kind of know when they buy a car.
That's their decision.
And going back to what you were saying.
You don't have to give them. What I'm saying is, you don't have to give them the opportunity for free charging.
But that is a business. But that is a business model. That Volta charging. This legislation is not approving free electricity because Volta has static images. That's their business decision. That's their business model. It's actually a traditional model. You give away, you advertise, and you give away free stuff, so this way you get the advertising dollars. It's a very traditional business model, and that's Volta Charging's prerogative to do that. That doesn't mean that another company that comes in that wants to put charging stations, because this is not exclusive to Volta Charging, this law, that they can charge and maybe have the advertising. I don't know, or no advertising at all.
And
That's
cap
not
us on
what
the
we're talking
liability,
about.
right?
And going back to the responsibility of the person, it's still the responsibility of the person to get to pay for their electricity, to pay for their gas, so to speak. Let's liken it to a gas pump if we want to, if we must. It's still that prerogative. But if a gas station decides that they want to give away free gas in lieu of advertising, it's their business model and their business decision, and I'll be the first one online.
Okay, and look, hold on, one at a time, please. So I think
Ed will be the first one online. I'm sorry.
No. I just want to make something really clear from what I'm getting from the comments and then our discussion. This right now, I think we're evolving and we're trying on something new. And the way that EV is doing it with being able to subsidize and make it affordable for others, plus you have the advertisement, and it's a good business model for you, and it's a safe model for us because we're not saying, hey guys, you're going to have to go spend your entire paycheck to charge your car. And it's kind of like this step into the kiddie pool instead of being on the deep end. From what I'm getting from what we just discussed with Susan is anyone who buys an electric car has to pay for the charge. If we wanted to limit our liability, we could promote or restrict people to put charging stations that do not have advertisement, that are just for the simple purpose of charging vehicles. And whatever it costs, just like if you go to mobile and you pay $4.69 or you go somewhere else $4.13, you choose where to get it. And that's it. 13? Yeah, actually, you have no idea.
Oh, wow.
I drive far. So,
sidetrack.
Okay, so anyway, let's just keep it.
You don't need advertisement, is what they're just saying.
So let's just keep it focused on the legislation. Are there any other comments on? And Kristen, did you want to have a few words here?
I'm just going to respond to a couple of quick things, and I think Sam just has one or two points he wants to make. And I know your counsel is here, and he could probably advise you a little bit more on legislation to control content and advertising and the nuances there. Practically speaking, though, from either a site plan or building permit approval process, Volta would be more than happy to provide like a list of advertising partners for that location if that's something that would give more comfort. We're more than happy to do that. I also just want to note the whole free charging thing, and I'll have Sam talk a little bit more about that. That is like a federal and state policy initiative, right? Because we're looking at 50% EVs on the road by 2030. That's very aggressive. It's very rapid. And in order to enhance and add comfort to that, this free model, right, is being encouraged. Also, I just a note on the Tesla's federal and state policies kind of discouraging those charging stations because they don't charge anything else.
Right.
And
Exactly.
that's
universal.
then you're dealing with a lot of infrastructure as opposed to things like Volta that can charge everyone's. And so I'll leave you with that and have Sam just mention a couple of other
Sam?
points.
Yeah, I'd like to just say, just talk about the industry as a whole, and some of our competitors who are a more traditional model where they charge for the charge and don't advertise. They're investing something close to $500,000, easily $700,000 to put 4 to 6 charging stations in a parking lot.
Right.
And that really racks up as they move and expand towards many sites. And right now the industry average is a 5% utilization. So they are barely making any money, any revenue off of that business model. And so, the reason why we're proposing this is that, you get to invest in your community 10 years, 20 years from now, when the demand of, EV cars on the road is growing rapidly. You want to pick the side that is still going to be there 20 years later, right? So all these other EV companies, if they come in, they invest and they build charging stations, but they're not around in 5-10 years, and all they did is left infrastructure that can't be used on parking lots anymore. They're really no use to the community. And so that's kind of where the business model stems from. It's not thinking just, entice people with free and, grab them. And
right.
It's thinking about the future and where we're going to be in 10, 15, 20 years.
Exactly. Makes sense.
And, look, it's pretty simple concept. You're plugging your car in and you're walking away and going into the mall. Yeah, you're going to see that sign that comes up for whatever advertisement,
right.
And
Oranges.
You're walking away from it, okay? In a gas station, you're standing there for several minutes. You're filling your car. You're watching the screen. Maybe the weather's on it, or come inside and have a cold drink or a hot coffee or something. So there's your little video that's this big, opposed to a sign that's 2x3, let's say, for argument's sake. That will change every approximately 8 or 10 seconds. That's not facing DOT right-of-ways and so on and so forth. So it's kind of apples and oranges. And in as far as I agree with you, Sam, that it's people that are coming up to these stations not only have Teslas, they have the Chevy Volts and this and that and the other thing, and they need to charge too. But in the BJ Shopping Center, I believe they have to pay with a credit card, right?
Over a Tesla?
Over a Tesla, right?
Yeah, they have to pay.
They have to put a credit card in,
Right.
and a
Or they
debit
use
card
the,
or
They
whatever.
use the app. I think it's more app-based.
Or an app or whatever.
John, you want to just grab the podium? Don't make Tom yell. We still have a whole other hearing to go, man.
Yes, some models pay, some models don't.
Right. Yeah, it all depends on
At
the
least
business
when
model.
they started
Yeah.
out. I don't know if they're all paying now or not.
Oh.
The Tesla models.
Right.
More
Thanks.
expensive when.
Adam, anything you want to add?
I mean, a lot's been said. If there's anything specifically that anyone wants me to address, I'm happy to do that. The regulation of commercial speech is a murky area. There's a test, it's the Central Hudson test. You have to go through the factors. If that's something the board wanted to consider, we'd have to think that through before that was done.
But couldn't that be applied during the site plan approval process? Kristen, do you know?
I believe the same factor test would apply in that case, and like I mentioned, though, we'd be more than happy to provide an advertising partner list.
But we could do that on a case-by-case basis through the site plan approval process.
If you wanted to ask for it through site plan approval process, sure. As in terms of being able to restrict commercial speech during the site plan approval process, I think you're getting into really murky water with, with being able to restrict. But that's not just the charging stations. That's restricting all signage in the town of Yorktown, right? I mean, it's a very slippery slope, in my opinion. But I'll let your counsel comment on that.
I mean, it is a genuine concern. I mean, so.
Theoretically, you can address it at any time. But again, it's a very nebulous area of the law. Courts don't like prior restraint of speech, even in the commercial context. So, it'd have to be addressed on a case-by-case basis and have to be thought through.
Okay.
Any other comments from the board?
No.
Feelings from the town board on the legislation?
I'd like to. I think it's fine the way it stands at this point in time. This is why we have a planning board and we have all our committees out there that give us ideas on what we should do with certain things, and our planning board has been very effective at this.
Mhm.
So I think that it's well enough written for the information and we have for the technology we have right now today. We can't look into our crystal ball and say, well, this is what we're going to have tomorrow. So I think it's well written for what we have today.
Any other thoughts?
No, I say it's time to close the public hearing and let's move it forward.
All right.
What's that?
Okay. All right. So
Oh, okay.
do we have a motion to close public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And at this point, does the town board want to adopt? Do you want to sit? Do you want to?
I think we can adopt
I
it.
think we're going to adopt it.
I agree.
Okay. Then we'll make a motion to
So moved.
adopt.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Law is adopted. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
We appreciate your diligence and all of the thought that went into this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Thanks, Sam. Bye,
We
Krista.
still have your phone number.
All right. Next. We.
Can you do me a favor?
Yes, sir.
Would you mind awarding that bid for me so I can?
Yes, sir.
skedaddle?
You don't want. You don't want to say no.
Well, it's very interesting, but no.
No.
All right. So
Got to get up really early.
we will. Then
Yeah.
we'll just adopt all the resolutions quickly. So we're going to accept the audit report received from the Yorktown Justice Court for fiscal year 2021. We're going to authorize the purchase. How do I say that, Tommy?
What?
How do we say of a copier?
Oh,
Kyocera.
Kyocera copier, scanner, fax machine for the planning department. How long? Since October.
You couldn't have got a Xerox?
Award bid for an Avant 640 articulated loader for the highway department. And that, by the way, is being awarded to Westchester Tractor, Inc., down up in Brewster. And then we will renew the Carlo Minuto Carting Company, Inc. commercial garbage licenses for 2022.
Good.
And last but not least, we have a resolution that have closed that the comptroller is hereby authorized to process a budget transfer. This will transfer $60,500 from the general fund's capital contingency line to the professional services line. And this is for the payment to the LaBerge Group for the 2021 and 2022 grant writing services invoices. Just as a reminder, they have helped us secure, I think, over $7 million at this point in time. So not a bad ROI for $60,000. So do we have a motion?
So
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Mr. Highway Superintendent, you have a good night.
You may go.
Very good. All right, so
Get the show on the road.
let's get on with it. So we're going to reconvene. We will reconvene the public hearing for the proposed local law to amend Chapter 300-81.4, entitled "The Solar Power Generation Systems and Facilities." Now, before we begin, I want to make a couple of comments on this. So, we've Diana, what is this? Number 4?
I'm not you gonna be.
4, 5, 12, 21. So this is our fourth time.
Fourth.
And I just want to make the point because this is, and I've said this before, this issue of renewable energy versus natural assets, it is not an easy balance to achieve, but it's a balance that we're striving for. And so we want to make sure, and the town board, I think, really deserves some credit for taking the time and not blindly passing things despite what they believe are their best intentions. And so taking the time to hear and gather input, to research and investigate some of the points that have been made. Frankly, the board's been accused by some of being deaf to our public hearings, but that is not the case. And I think this particular issue proves that. Now, having said that, and Highway Superintendent, now that you're back, you can stay.
Couldn't go without my keys.
Now, having said that, I think that one of the things that we've heard is this issue of cutting down large numbers of trees, specifically in protected woodlands, for the installation of large-scale solar systems. This is what we've heard multiple times. And the question that the town that's the town board needs to grapple with is how do we help advance renewable energy in the form of solar?
Mm-hmm.
And our solar law, I think, does a great job in doing that. And the other thing is the solar law, and we've said this before, and I've had conversations with Sarah Wilson about this. The solar law does prioritize where we want to see these solar systems. And on the very last rung of the priority is woodlands, and we put that there purposefully because again we recognize that putting it on parking lots, putting it on farmlands, so on and so forth, are much more advantageous.
Absolutely.
So I think at this point, one of the things that I think I'd like to discuss with the board is putting some additional weight onto that woodlands criteria. Mm-hmm. Now, through the tree law, there is the protected woodlands designation, which is more than 10,000 square feet, and it's designated as protected woodlands. So, one of the things that we've seen through some of the applications that are before the planning board is a more in-depth analysis of the functionality of the woodlands. And so what I think, and what I'd like to discuss with my colleagues first, is the idea of large-scale solar projects that encroach more than 50% of the project on a protected woodlands, and I'll explain why that. I think we need to have why a threshold is necessary. But that encroaches onto a protected woodlands should be required to have that level of analysis done to understand the functionality of the woodlands as we saw in one of the applications before the planning board. And the reason I think there needs to be a threshold, and I want to thank John Tegeter for pointing this out to me, is that, and I'm going to use a prime example, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, if you want to take the podium, please, but the Kitchewan Farm application encroached on what would be defined as a protected woodland.
Mm-hmm.
Correct? Please, yeah. I'm going to give you your exercise.
Yes.
So if the Kitchewan, and this is where I think we just need to be surgical in our approach. So if you have a situation or an application such as the Kitchewan Farm, which achieves what we wanted it to achieve, which goes on farmland, which protects and continues an important natural asset in our community that's been here for generations, but yet it encroaches on a woodland. I'm not convinced that it deserves the same level of scrutiny. However, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the planning board didn't feel it needed that level of scrutiny either.
That one in particular, let's just
I'm talking about that one in
that
particular.
Out, yeah.
Yes.
So that one in particular, that area was farmed essentially as a tree nursery, and they were planting magnolias there, planted them very close together, believing that they would then pull them out for replanting. So now they're very tightly grouped together.
Mm-hmm.
So by definition in the tree law, it's considered a protected woodland, but in essence it's not a natural woodland. So you will have all of these situations coming up on all of these different applications. No two are really going to be exactly alike. So and I think that's the point. Not just that a woodland that you may find existing on a farm should have less protection if it has some salient attributes as a woodland.
Right. I understand that. Yeah. But I still think that's why there should be some type of threshold. Because I think it's going to keep some of these other applications, but help future applications that are similar to Kitchewan progress through the process. Again, accomplishing what we set out to accomplish in the solar law. Putting it on a farmland. Perfect. But in the cases where more than 50% of the project, of a large-scale solar project, encroaches on and requires the removal of a protected woodland, then I think that there needs to be that further analysis. And by providing that and requiring that further analysis, you're providing the planning board and the public with, I think, greater knowledge of the impact. And that's in addition to the sequestration sequestration requirement that's already in the law. So now we're going to get what the impact is on what the renewable energies are going to do from a carbon footprint standpoint, specifically solar. But we're also going to see the impact that it may have on the functionality of the woodlands, which I think is one of the things that we've heard quite a bit about. And so I turn to to my colleagues on the board. That's where my head's at, because I think that it's I hear the comments that were made, and I think we all do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know you've spoken, Linda Miller's in the audience tonight, and Luciana, I know you spoke with her. And so I think that this does allow us to help reinforce the priorities of where we want solar farms to go.
But also get curious on what the woodlands have for us that we're ignoring.
Well, not that we're ignoring, but it's going to make sure that we're not ignoring them on these large-scale solar projects. So there's not this consistent debate of trees versus solar power.
I think that we've made it clear we need the solar power. We need the solar power. We just have to vet where we're putting it.
Exactly.
That's all.
But so for me, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead. And that's the only thing. So if we were doing it blindly, we would be
right.
Being destructive on things that we need to be. And now that we are not doing it blindly, and we've been constantly vetting through it, I think that we're just opening up more lenses, and that's why we are here. And I think that is exactly where to start.
So as a reminder, will be. If you include this into the full amendments that have been proposed, and I'm going to get to you in 2 seconds, Councilman Esposito, then you're significantly restricting large-scale solar in residential neighborhoods.
Along with?
Nearly all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're having these large-scale systems that are impacting woodlands with 50% of the project, encroaching on a protected woodland, it requires that extra level of scrutiny.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
it's a totally different lens.
And there's no one-size-fits-all cookie-cutter deal.
Absolutely not. Each project is to be looked at differently.
Councilman Esposito.
Yeah, so, I've always been contending with myself on almost like I'm going to put it in business terms, like a cost-benefit analysis. And what I've always said was that I thought it was always a wash, right? But with the carbon sequestration, you explained to me how solar actually benefits more as far as the carbon footprint goes. So I understand that, and I really appreciated that, and that changed exactly what I was thinking about. But when you look at these protected woodlands, we don't know what the benefit of that the protected woodlands is providing. So for me, if we're going to have less of a benefit, taking into account the carbon stuff and all of that, but if we're going to have less of a benefit because the protected woodland is providing more of a benefit than it would for solar panels. Now, everybody has to understand, you can't put like one solar panel up and generate electricity. Solar panels have to be in large quantities. That's just the nature of the panels. They've come a long way, and they're harnessing more of the sun's energy, but they're like batteries. Batteries are really still lagging behind in technology, right? They're very poor conductors and stuff. But anyway, so I think putting that in, because I was thinking about it, and then I think adding that as an added study, so this way we could really figure out whether or not we're benefiting or not from one of these projects, and they're all different, Councilman Diana, just like you said. I think it gives us more information, and it gives us a chance to make a better, well-informed, and educated decision on whether or not a solar project would benefit or not
in that area.
I think we should add it.
And I just want to point out that we did do some research and had some discussions on adding it to the tree law, and having anything that impacted a protected woodland to have this type of study. But it was brought to our attention, and I appreciate it, that doing so is going to really hinder not just solar but a whole slew of potential projects that we don't know if we're ready to capture at this point in time, because the conversation in this conversation has simply been about solar, large-scale solar. And so moving it to the solar law and including it in this, I think, does a lot of good. I think it reinforces the priorities in a very specific way. It makes sure that if there is a proposal in the future, that we understand the functionality of the woodlands, and that is incorporated in the decision-making process. So we're making smarter decisions. We're getting better information that's going to help us make smarter decisions. And I think that's going to help the process overall. So
No, I'm grateful that you guys, I'm grateful for this board. I feel like you guys, we've all taken numerous considerations. We've listened, and I've even brought my crazy discussions, and you guys have vetted them all, and I learned tons from Linda. So I was coming home with insects and stuff, but I do think that this is a great start.
John,
a couple of points, and forgive me. In terms of the planning board, I don't think they ever give anything short shrift.
No, and I'm not saying they do.
I want to be very clear.
And I agree with you. I think that they do a great job. I think they take a lot of time to do their due diligence.
Yes, and being the type of board that they are, unfortunately, sometimes they have an understanding of information that comes in that may not be as easily understood by somebody in the public. And I'm not belittling or mischaracterizing anything in that regard. My point is that if something comes in and it seems as though there may not be enough information to a layperson, planning board and the people working on the application have a little bit more insight often into that. So I think that's a little bit what has happened in some of these cases. Second is that in terms of the carbon sequestration, that is certainly a quantitative comparison that you can make. And I'm pretty certain that you can evaluate the functions of the forest, but when you take the functions of the forest and stack them up against the benefit of the solar, that I think that's going to be qualitative. I don't know of anything that reduces that to a quantitative comparison that you can say one is better than the other. Just as a point.
But I'm not. But I think as we saw though with one of the applications before the planning board, when they finally did the due diligence in that, and they brought that information forward, it showed that it was a
non-functional.
It was a non-functional woodlands.
For me, that's quantitative.
Yeah, they did the due diligence beforehand, and it was shown to be a lower functioning forest.
I'm not denying that.
They went back pursuant to some of the comments and made it very clear with the environmental consultant to be very clear as to why they came up with those conclusions,
right?
To point back their sources and things like that.
But I just think it's really, and I think from our standpoint, hearing the comments and the concerns that have been brought to, is it going to land on me? I see it. It's a fly. I'm going to get Mike Pence. Do you remember he had the fly on his head?
Yeah.
But when we hear the comments and the concerns, I think it's really important as a town board that we're ensuring the public that even though the planning board may already understand what's before them, see, there it went.
Missed you.
That the town process is taking every step it can to evaluate, gather information, and make intelligent decisions.
Not disagreeing with that in one
right.
Okay.
Point. And when this whole solar thing first started, all we had was NYSERDA, right, John?
Yeah.
Well, and
we went a little further than NYSERDA.
Yes, but
we had some other laws, that we based it on.
That was our model to start with.
Yes.
And then we evolved from there. And being that solar basically is in its infancy, and it's evolving. I don't know if it's on a daily basis, but it's evolving quite rapidly. What you need 10 acres to make the large scale is probably going to be, this size in a few years. Of course, I'm exaggerating, but so this law will constantly, I shouldn't say constantly, this law will be changing probably a number of times from this point forward as things evolve.
It'll evolve.
And we've said the same thing with the EV car chargers.
Yep.
The technology is just evolving at such a speed that we're going to be constantly behind the eight ball in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I agree. I agree with that.
So, John, any other thoughts? Because I do want to hear from the public based on what we've.
I'll get you've heard my philosophical.
I understand.
Discussion points
No,
on
it's
it. They still exist in my head.
It's constitutional.
So I'll leave it in my head for tonight.
First Amendment.
Don't go too far, John.
All right, so we will open it up. I do want to hear public comment on this because it's something that we're trying to solicit input and trying to feel our way through to achieve a very difficult balance.
Mr. Lieberman.
Sir.
Good evening, Supervisor and Town Council members.
Good evening.
So I'm Mark Lieberman, and I'm co-chair of the Yorktown Democrats, and I'm representing that organization tonight. And I do appreciate these opening comments, but they don't affect my talk. So about 2 weeks ago, I published an opinion piece that asked the town board to put a moratorium on the destruction of woodlands for solar farms. It's very clear that solar energy and woodlands, as you were saying, are both important to our future. And I know from reliable sources that solar farm developers are offering to buy property-oriented woodlands throughout the town at this point. So before many more commitments are made, now is the perfect time to reevaluate Yorktown's solar law. My opinion piece outlined the impact of destroying woodlands. It's not just the cutting of trees, it's the release of carbon from that, it's the removal of an air and water filtering system, the elimination of a wildlife habitat, and it's also a contributor to the spread of certain diseases and stormwater runoff. It's quite easy to mitigate the removal of a few trees with a few trees somewhere else, but it's quite impossible to mitigate the removal of a woodland. I've read it takes a minimum of 65 years. But tonight I want to point out some other concerns with the solar law. One is the impact on home values. Two is the creation of a commercial area within a residential zone. And three is potential noise. So home values. In September 2020, a University of Rhode Island study suggested that property prices for homes within 1/10 of a mile from a solar farm fall by 7%. The largest impacts were in suburban communities where housing prices within a mile of the solar farm dropped by 5%. Two other studies show that the closer you live to a solar farm, the more negative the property value impacts. Why would the town board rush into an action that might lower the value of homes in Yorktown? Two, creating a commercial area within a residential zone. A solar farm will require maintenance of the grounds, possible transformer leaks, conduit repairs, shorts, damages from storms, etc. Thus, there will be additional commercial activity within a residential neighborhood. This, too, will have an adverse effect on home values and quality of life. Noise. An operational solar farm generates core noise, coil noise, and fan noise. The design of a solar farm will be critical to the amount of noise that will exist in a residential neighborhood. Noise would, yet again, decrease the desirability and value of homes near a solar farm. So knowing that we all want what is best for the residents of Yorktown, I ask that you take the time to hire impartial experts to revise the current solar law. Do the parking lots, the rooftops, do all new developments, and that's been discussed before. Do the unused, already cleared spaces first to build these necessary solar farms. Leave the woodlands alone, save our neighborhoods, save our home value. Thank you.
Just before you walk away, what was the noises again? I'm sorry, I missed.
So there's noise, and I'm not the expert.
Right. No, that's why I was just curious.
So there's core noise, coil noise, and fan noise.
Oh, and fan,
these
okay.
can be designed properly, and I don't know what your criteria for design is, but there is the possible of noise in the neighborhood.
Okay.
And Mark, it's good to see you
Sure.
tonight, by the way.
Hi.
What were the studies that you were citing? Do you have them?
Yeah. So the first one was the University of Rhode Island. Another one was the University of...
When? When was the Rhode Island?
2020.
2020.
Yeah. The other ones, I have the notes at home, but I believe it was the University of Texas in Austin.
You know when? When the study was?
I'll check, but around 2019. And the third one, I don't remember that one, but
Okay.
it was an economic council organization.
Gotcha.
But I'll be happy to send that to you.
Be great. Thank you.
Like Sergio, I've spent all my career in IT. I'd say that I had the second, maybe the first Apple II in Yorktown, and I was a mainframe person. It's very difficult for you to make judgments. I think you have to go with your intelligence. I mean, when I first connected to the well out in San Francisco, it cost me $21 a connection. Now it's free. You know, all of these things change so rapidly that you want an open-ended law, but you want to do what Matt said, aim for protecting this, achieving a balance. If you don't know what the balance is going to be, you don't know what the balance is going to be in 2 years. All of the things that Mark points to may or may not be something to worry about 5 years from now, 3 years from now, 20 years from now. We don't know. You've got a hard job.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we do.
Are you guys in competition tonight? See who gets up first?
I just need the exercise. It's easy to knock down an old woman.
Oh, man. Oh, hey. Oh, whoa, whoa.
boy.
I have munchkins here.
Not that
Oh,
old.
man. Ouch.
Okay, so Paul Moskowitz. Forget what I just said. I think you're moving in the right direction. It's the first time I've heard a town board or a planning board actually discuss priorities other than carbon when you're talking about solar farms. However, in all the discussions about carbon, there's one fact that is always left out. That is, people will come and say, well, the solar panels will save you 10 times as much carbon as the trees will. Fine. But what people don't mention is that the trees have been storing up carbon for 50 to 100 years. And if you do a little calculation, you can see that it'll take you 5 or maybe 10 years, depending on how good the trees are, how many there are, how good the solar collectors are. But it'll take you years to catch up with what the trees have stored up in the ground. And if you cut down all the trees and bulldoze the site, all that carbon stored in the ground in the roots is going to be liberated into the atmosphere. So that should be taken into account when you're doing comparisons. Of course, somebody who wants to cut down all the trees doesn't want to do that. I can see two contradictions that you face. First of all, as the solar law is written now, it's an as-of-right development. You can put as many regulations as you want, but if a developer for solar farms meets those requirements, there's no way that the town planning board is going to deny them a permit. They have to by law. And if they don't, they will be sued. So that's one contradiction. You have to change that in some manner. Make it possible for the town board to pass judgment, just as the town board does for overlay districts. Although it would have been nicer for the overlay district approval to have a public hearing, for a specific part of the overlay district, which you approved without a public hearing. But that's an aside. That has nothing to do with this. I just had to say that. There's another contradiction, and that is this has to do with priorities. And that is, there's a list of priorities in the solar law, but this overlooks the implicit priority. The solar law was written in such a way to prioritize the cutting down of forests. The prime example of that is the Foothill Lockwood development, proposed solar development. This has been before the town board, the planning board, for several years now. So I have a memo from Joe Shanahan. He started out, as a vice president for the CEC Corporation, trying to get the approval to cut down, I think it was 14 acres plus or minus for the Foothill Lockwood area, and another dozen acres along Underhill Avenue. Imagine that. You're entering the town of Yorktown, you see all those solar panels. Well, some of us might think that's a good idea. On the other hand, that's a very steep slope. That's a bad idea.
Mr. Moskowitz, if you could, just keep it, if you can bring it back to the...
I am.
Okay. I just want to make sure, because we've heard, a lot about this particular project.
Have you ever heard me go on and on without making...
No, but I just want to make sure we're staying focused so we can get through the matter.
So the contradiction has to do with the priorities. You've written a set of priorities into the law, but the law was written with one priority. Mr. Shanahan, who represented CEC, which went bankrupt and was taken over by Con Edison, now represents Con Edison for the same Foothill Lockwood development. When the law was first being considered, and this was by a previous administration, Mr. Shanahan wrote a memo to the town planning board and to the supervisor. And I will spare you the full memo. I will just read one paragraph. I am pleased when my colleague Kathy Hawk reported to me last week that the proposed solar law is finally taking shape, but was most disappointed to hear, despite the foundation which Al and I had laid with town officials, that's Al Capolini, with town officials during months of very positive and productive meetings before his illness, and the subsequent collaboration between and hard work of Ms. Hawk and Mr. Tegeter. There is some recent talk about possibly prohibiting solar projects in residential areas. You've heard some of that. As you are likely aware, such a prohibition would effectively kill not just one but both of our projects, meaning the Foothill project and the Underhill Avenue project. What this means is that the town of Yorktown was very well aware of what Mr. Shanahan was doing. He even presented plans. I have them at home, but I'll spare you those. He even presented plans to the planning board, which refused to look at them because the law had not yet been written. But what he is saying here in this memo, at least he believes, that this law was written by the planning department so that he could clear cut all those acres of trees. And this is what you have to go against if you're going to change the law, because this was built into the law as we have it now.
Thank you, Mr. Moskowitz.
Thank you.
Watch out, Susan. Here he comes again.
Thank you. Susan Siegel again. I want to say thank you to all of you on the board for listening to the public, listening to me also, and recognizing that the solar law needs to deal with the issue of the functions of woodlands. All right, so I thank you for that. Earlier today, you know that I sent you a memo that I work with Linda Miller, who's here, who was the co-author of the 2010 tree law, which was very innovative at the time, and then worked with the previous town board to adopt and worked closely with John Tegeter, members of the engineering department, the conservation board, the tree commission on the 2019 law. and she is the one who is really the environmental person. I think since we don't have anyone on staff. Thank you for doing that. I don't know. I can't react to your suggestion about putting the 50% threshold. And I would hope that you would have a dialogue and let me contribute, and especially Linda, okay, and get some feedback from her, because this took me as a surprise, so I don't know how to react to it tonight. But I would like to point out some of the things that if you're going to work out and put the function issue into a new amendment, okay, let's put aside the threshold for a point. In the language that I gave you, and this was just a draft, okay, which basically requires that an assessment of the functions of the work of the protected woodland be done, okay, that it also referenced the functions identified in the tree law. And I say that, and that's important, because when the town's environmental consultant, after a lot of pressure from the public at the planning board for Foothill, finally said you've got to do some kind of function analysis of the functions, the town's consultant did one, which was, I can't use the right words here, all right, but it was a very poor analysis. 99% of what the consultant did on the first go-around was just saying, well, on line 12 you forgot this, and on line 2 it said this. And then there was a small paragraph of maybe 4 or 5 sentences that dealt with the woodlands. It was totally to say incomplete is doesn't quite describe it. So it was only with renewed pressure from the public and also a scathing memo from the Conservation Board that the Planning Board required the environmental consultant, to do a second environmental analysis, which was much more detailed and went into the many different functions. And I'm saying this because you have to specify in the law that the assessment to be done will follow the functions listed in the tree law, because they're all listed there. Okay, we don't have to repeat them, but we have to make sure that the assessment is a proper assessment. And unfortunately, what happened at the planning board, because the assessment, the good assessment was done after the public hearing was closed, the public doesn't even have an opportunity to comment on it for the record.
Ms. Siegel, did the second memo accomplish?
It dealt with the function analysis, which is what it should have done in the first place.
Which is fine. I'm just
absolutely.
Just asking.
You're just saying swap it. Should have done.
They should have.
Been done.
Yeah.
In the,
That's
which
fine.
is what I'm saying.
That's
when
fine.
When the consultant was hired, there was no detailed scope of work to say what to
So the second memo, though, accomplished the assessment of the functions of the woodlands as identified in the tree law.
I didn't compare it all, but I would think it did.
Yeah.
It appeared to be very comprehensive.
Yeah.
Can you comment on that?
I'm not going to comment on the.
No, I asked John. Let me ask John.
Oh,
John, on that second memo regarding the application, did it go into detail regarding the functionality of the woodlands as it is described within the tree law?
It went into detail to prove the point in the first number of memos. So the discussion that it was done all wrong in the first instance is false, number one.
This isn't a debate, but yes, I understand.
Right.
The conclusion
However,
was the same
the
in both
conclusions
memos,
were
right?
the same.
Right.
It's just that they
It was more thorough.
expanded on the explanation of how they reached the conclusion in the first instance.
It had more explanation.
But so then
now, as far as the functions, I would like to have Susan, if she can find one, submit some examples that we can follow. But I don't know that there are. As I said before, there are function analysis for wetlands and so forth that become quantitative. I don't know that there is for
the woodlands.
Forest woodlands. There may be. I haven't seen any yet. I would love to get it if there is, because I'd like to reduce it to numbers.
Yep.
But I haven't seen it. The functions that are listed, we've talked about a number of times. It's what's on the forest floor. has water retention qualities. It filters water, etc. All of those are known things. You can quantify them. We do that in the stormwater, as I said, relative to the water and what the forest does in terms of rainfall and how much water it sequesters, if I can use that term.
Mhm.
All of that is known. It's disparate. I don't find it in the tree law to be as a very hard list of things that you can be quantitative about. Okay, so.
If we can just limit I know it's getting late, but we're trying to focus on the testimony.
And I
so if
want
we
to
can
say,
limit the conversations in
right,
the audience, that'd be
as,
great.
As one of the people that worked on the tree law, I agree with everyone here that says that the loss of trees and woodlands is something that we should be very, very concerned with, not taking that lightly. When I talked about my philosophical points, it's related to how we work and apply laws, how they're constructed, and what our charge is as written.
Yes.
Very important, because if we're set off on things that we can't accomplish, you know where that goes. And that's a very important point.
I understand your point exactly.
I'm just saying that you have however you phrase the law, just be more careful in terms of what is required of the functional assessment. The other point I'd like to make, and this was in the draft law that I sent you, and again, it's just my suggestions, is that you add a sentence. You already have a requirement in the law that says the applicant has to provide a statement about the carbon sequestration. Okay. I think it would behoove, and this gets to your point, Sergio, and it says the planning board shall prepare a statement that weighs the costs and benefits of both the proposed solar facility and the existing functions of the wetlands. Just do that cost-benefit analysis, put it down on paper.
Can you repeat what you just? Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
It's number 3 in her.
Right there.
Prepare a statement that weighs the costs and benefits of both the proposed solar facility and the existing functions of the site's woodlands.
So let it not be limited only to the carbon, let it also be part of the functions, she's just saying.
Because, as you said, if the carbon sequestration comes out net zero, fine. But I don't know about the other ones. At this point, I'm not prepared to talk about John's point about the quantitative issues. And perhaps, I don't want to put you on the spot, Linda, but I think Linda is more of the expert in this, and maybe she could refer to that. And if I go back to look at the B&L, the second evaluation they did, I think they did refer to some studies and some documents and some industry guidelines, but I don't.
She's just saying in there instead of it
The
just
other point, and this is a very minor point, in the last section H in the current law, it talks about mitigation. At section H, I don't know what you're showing there. This is the law that's. All right.
This is
And
what
you
we're having the
only
conversation.
Talk about mitigation of trees, and I think you're talking about mitigation of trees and the loss of the woodlands. So that's just a textual change, that the mitigation plan should relate to also the loss if you're going to grant a solar permit. And I'm not saying that you always have to protect every woodland. I'm saying you have to weigh it. If every site is different, every woodland is different.
Mm-hmm.
All right?
Agreed.
And so that so just look at those last two lines, and I hope that you'll give us an opportunity to kind of weigh in on this 50% threshold.
Well,
issue.
I think we have to just be cognizant of the fact that the longer, it's analysis to paralysis, and that's what I'm afraid of, because the door is still open for more applications to come in.
Right, we don't want to keep it open anymore.
Well, if I can,
that's the concern.
If I can make a comment, one of the other amendments that we want to add is to raise the threshold to 2 acres, and that's
a small scale. That's the whole other one.
Right, but we're
all tied in together.
It's all tied in together because we haven't been able to pass this, and so what ended up happening. Now we could argue about the question of timing, but at the planning board last week, right, somebody came in and wants to do solar on an acre and 1.39 acres, I believe.
Right.
And you know what? If we had passed that, he wouldn't have had his application. And we could argue about the timing. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. But my point is that it is possible that something might come in, right? While we will continue to analyze. I mean, we've had 4 meetings already, 4 public hearings on this already. So this is not the final iteration. Mr. Councilman Diana already pointed that out. But at a certain point, we can't keep continuing to debate and argue all these little kind of nuances to the detriment of other projects coming in, which we know people would be upset about.
That's a valid point, and I have two answers to that one. You could change that grandfather clause, the last provision that was put in, and you could say this does not cover anything that hasn't gotten approval, right? It doesn't mean just because they submitted an application.
I don't think that our council would agree with that.
I
don't think our Adam, can you please weigh in on that?
Is that and just one other point
Because
before
if
Adam
there's an
weighs in on that. And the second point is I brought this issue up in February at the very first hearing. So it's the town board that has taken 4 public hearings to recognize and deal with the function issue. I'm thanking you.
No. I believe it's the
but
town
been-
board. I believe it's the town board that has listened to the public and has listened to the public's comments and has taken them. And we've taken a slow approach because of all the comments. So last time we were here, you said we weren't listening. Now you're saying we're listening too much.
No.
This is exactly what the problem is. This is the paralysis
It's not
that the supervisor just mentioned.
It's not paralysis, and you can get this done quickly. Do you want to respond on the issue of the permits?
It's not as simple as it's presented. I mean, there are a variety of factors that are going to be looked at as to whether someone had a property, whether they had vested rights or not at a given point in time. So it's not
because
not right.
the battery storage, that issue came up when the battery storage law was being passed because there was an application that already had gone through. It was at the zoning board and then a planning board, and they knew that they would not be covered because it hadn't reached a certain point in the process. So I just think, and I urge you, yes, to move quickly, on this.
I mean, I think that we're ready in certain aspects. Yeah. I mean, I think that the threshold proposal, I think, really does incorporate a lot. It basically incorporates the very thing you sent, except that it's in putting a threshold so we're not handcuffing some other projects that we want to see move forward that are higher up on the hierarchy.
I need to think about the 50%.
That's I want to know if the town board needs to think about it because I understand that you may need to think
No,
about it.
I was comfortable with it.
But if we want, I think there's a genuine concern on future applications that the longer we leave the goalie out of the net, they're going to keep coming in.
It has already occurred. I'm sorry, Councilman. It has already occurred.
Yeah.
So
when I was at the planning board last week, 2 weeks ago.
Last week.
And I got to tell you, I'm not going
that was referred by the building
I'm not going to give you my personal opinion on the project, but
right.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
Hello, I'm Linda Miller.
Hi, Linda.
I was very pleased to hear the language that the town board was talking about having to do with cost-benefit analysis, because I think that is exactly what is needed in trying to achieve a balance between the benefits of woodlands and the benefits of solar. However, it's it's somewhat difficult to do with the way the solar law is written, because the solar law only requires mandates an analysis of one function of the woodlands, and that is the carbon sequestration. That is the only one that is mentioned. It's very appropriate that calculation be done, because that is an area where it's a function of both the solar facility and the trees, they having to take the carbon out of the atmosphere. So it's very appropriate that it's done, and that makes perfect sense. But what doesn't make any sense is the fact that the solar law does not mention any of the other functions of the trees. And that's where the amendments that you were presented today try to address that, to require that the other functions of the woodlands be specifically mentioned, mandated, that analysis, that cost benefit, be done and that be specifically put into the solar law. Not just the carbon sequestration, all of them. And then the analysis be done, and then something be presented that answers the question, the very specific question, is the zero emissions electricity that comes from a particular site, I'm talking about a particular site that's under review, is that going to be a good trade-off for the benefits that are given to us by the other functions of the woodland? And that's your cost-benefit analysis.
Mm-hmm.
And
As you just said.
keeping in mind, given that there are other appropriate sites for solar facilities in the town, and keeping this on a local level consideration. Okay, considering these are the woodlands that we have. We're not talking about the Amazon. We're not talking about the redwood forest here. We're talking about what we have in Yorktown. And so we have to protect the benefits and the functions that our woodlands are giving us. Now, you hear the, act locally, think globally. Well, yeah, you have to act locally. And you have to act locally to protect the functions that we have. And no doubt, I'm sure you're thinking, well, we've already got this analysis of woodland function already. It's in the tree law. It's mandated in the tree law that you have to do this in order for a tree permit. And so this is redundant. But let me just say this. I'm an absolutely firm believer that laws should literally encode what the town thinks is important. Do you think that protecting woodland function is important? And I certainly hope you do, because it's for our benefit. If you do think that protecting town woodland function is important, then say so, mandate it in the solar law. Now, so then I have a few other comments and questions about what we just heard here tonight, and that has to do with the 50% encroachment thing. One question that I would have is to make it clear, are you talking about 50% of the project encroaching, or are you talking about it encroaching on 50% of the woodland?
50% of the project would have to encroach onto the woodlands.
I would have to think about this a little bit, but you just mentioned a proposed project that's more than an acre. So 50% of that is
This would only be for large scale. I don't think that's a large scale system.
It wouldn't be for anything like that.
No, and that
I think
particular
you need to do some
in that particular project, if we would pass this, wouldn't even be allowed at this point.
Okay, you have
on
to
its
do
face, it would just be denied.
right,
Say
it
no,
would be
sorry.
some
Have a
back
nice
of the
day.
envelope kind of calculations to talk about, well, exactly how much area are you talking about, and how does that compare with the defined size of protected woodland? Exactly how is that going to work out?
I think it's very simple. If you're a large scale solar project, and if 50% of the project encroaches onto a protected woodlands,
so what would 50%? How many square feet?
That's
50% of a
I think it's
large
project by project.
I think it's relative to the project.
Right.
Just give me an example.
I don't
I'm
have
not-
an example. I don't.
Are you talking about an acre? Are you talking about 2 acres? You're talking about 10 acres?
It would be large scale.
10 acres?
No, we're not giving. There's no example to give. It's 50% of the total size of the project. If 50% or more encroaches on a protected woodlands, then they would be required to do the extra analysis of the functionality of the woodlands that it's impacting.
I think what you're going to end up seeing is that that threshold is going to be very high.
But if that threshold's high, doesn't that accomplish what you wanted it to? Because if the threshold's high, then you're not impacting.
Not permitted to do it.
You're not impacting the woodlands in a severe way.
They won't be allowed to do it.
Well, no, they wouldn't be impacting it in a severe way.
Right.
They're curtailing the size of their projects, so they're not impeding onto the woodlands.
Then how can you do a cost-benefit analysis if you're not looking at the costs and benefits.
No, you would be.
One of the benefits would be the woodland would still be intact.
Right.
Yeah.
That would be one of the benefits would be that the woodland would still be intact, and that the solar would still be in play.
I'm sorry that I didn't understand that from what you were saying. So I think that this discussion right now requires more detail.
Okay, so I don't think maybe we're just not saying it clearly. If we are encroaching on woodlands and it disrupts more than 50% of our project encroaches onto the woodlands, right? So let's say the project is, I don't know, 100 feet, and 50 feet of it is in this cost analysis, or let's just say function. I like to call it the functioning woodlands review.
Protected woodlands. 50 feet have to be in the protected woodlands.
But it has to be in the protected woodlands. Then at that point, that would be the minimum that they can disrupt those woodlands.
That would trigger the analysis.
It's to evaluate.
Yeah,
correct.
But we're getting into a debate, guys. We're getting
I thought
way
you were
off.
saying that would trigger an evaluation.
No, it's all everything. Yes,
Evaluation.
and then if it says, okay, no, this is dangerous. The function of the woodlands is much greater than the solar. That project would not be able to go through.
Well, no, that information would be given to the planning board to
Well,
make the
then-
necessary decisions.
But would
And
it
they're
be
ju-
for them to
it-
do
They
the cost
would have to
analysis?
do the
They would have to do
right.
the evaluation,
Right.
and they would have to,
So if it was less than 50%, then they didn't have to do this extra evaluation. But if it's 50% or more,
I'm sorry, it's not an extra evaluation. Evaluating the woodlands should not be an extra thing. It should be a required thing.
Well,
Thank
we
you.
are requiring it for more than half of.
I thought it was
large scale solar.
Yeah, I thought it was required as part of it.
Michael Beeks. Let me give you an example. Let's say somebody has 10 acres.
You said Michael
I said
Beek,
Mike-
sir. Thank you.
Somebody has 10 acres, and 49% of that 10 acres is your woodlands. You can develop that entire area under that suggestion.
No. That suggestion would say that they wouldn't be required under the law to do the in-depth analysis
But
of the
they
woodlands,
could.
but
they could.
Excuse me, sir. But the planning board could still require it as part of their site plan approval process.
Right.
I'll make it really brief. I don't understand about talking about carbon neutral projects which remove woodlands. I don't even know how that's on the table when we have so much land that's already cleared and developed, and that if the town provided incentives for these companies to develop those areas rather than woodland areas. How many projects in this town have involved clearing land, clearing woodlands, and then find out after the fact the environmental damage caused by that? Go back to Guiding Eyes for the Blind's parking lot. Now you have all those neighbors that have their lawns are mush. You go to my neighbor, his house was developed on. They put the septic system on a seasonal wetlands.
But we're not discussing carbon neutral projects. We're trying to figure out what projects would have a cost, a benefit to the town.
But again, going back to Linda's point, it's not about just being carbon neutral.
Right, it's not. That's exactly what this discussion is about. And the parking lot example I don't know how that's relative to the solar law,
Well,
because
I'm just
the
saying
solar law there would be
because there's been a lot of mistakes made in analyzing woodlands and their actual effects of soil retention, water retention, all things beyond.
But if I could finish, what we're talking about here is solar panels, solar collectors, in lieu of trees, right? That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about.
That's a really
we're
bad
not
trade-off.
We're not talking
That's a
about. Well,
really bad
if I could
trade-off.
finish, because I listened to you, and I would like to finish my sentence, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
So, your example, which I don't think was an accurate example, was you're trading off trees for a parking lot.
No.
We are not.
I'm just
we are
giving
not
it-
discussing that.
I'm
But-
giving
but-
an
but-
example of how easy it is to underestimate the value of woodlands. That was meant by that example, and I didn't mean to take up too much time with that.
No.
But again,
take your
back
time.
I'll take back to my main point: the carbon trade-offs.
Not a good idea.
Well, it's not an even trade-off.
I mean, what do you think? I don't know.
Mr. Strauss.
Dan Strauss. I'm going to change the course of this. There are 3 projects right now. There's not. We shouldn't even talk about them. Foothill's done.
If we can just, please, in the audience, please, thank you.
Foothill's done. The Jefferson Valley, Hill Boulevard project or whatever it is, that's done. Strawberry Road is done, unless they don't come back. They're all done. Don't even talk about them. As far as I'm concerned, the solar law, when it was written, you were not here, Mr. Esposito, Ms. Howitt, you were not here when the law was written. You were here. As far as I'm concerned, it was written to accommodate 2 landowners. That's my opinion. That's my opinion.
Mr. Strauss, if we could stay focused on the amendments,
I am,
because
and
we're trying.
I'm
Thank
going
you.
to go to what is the deal now.
Okay.
The city of Mount Kisco limits to 35% what you can do with a large-scale solar in a residential neighborhood. They limit it to the amount of the property. To me, that would be the only way that you would amend the law to limit, as of right, movement on a project. Mr. Moskowitz keeps bringing that up, as of right. Basically, they can do what they want when they come in. Your suggestion, which is well taken, is just complicates things. It complicates it. It's either you limit the property, what they can do, or it just sails through. That's it. It's cut and dry. We can talk about the benefits, this and that. I make the prediction that when you put in a large-scale solar farm in residential areas and it rains like the other night, and I know Mr. Tegeter will say, you've got all this mitigation, and I'm not going to talk about mitigation, but he says they'll mitigate the storm water mitigation. It will flood everything. You're going to have floods all over Yorktown. That's my opinion, if you do that. And to this gentleman's point, that's when you do not take into account the possibility that it is not a good idea to do it. And it's nothing to do with the balance of trees versus the solar. If you take those trees down, what is going to be the consequence? And I say there's going to be flooding all through residential areas, and that's one of the main reasons why I say you should limit or not have any of these large-scale in residential neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I just address Mr.
Quickly.
Strauss's, but very quickly?
Very quickly.
There have been two issues. The issue of, do the solar large scale belong in the residential neighborhoods, and if so, how to regulate it, and then the functions, okay? They're 2 very different issues. Sergio, to your point about paralysis of analysis, let's get this done. Yes, I want to get it done, which is why I have dropped the residential issue. Okay? Because I think let's move ahead, deal with the functional issues, because you're kind of almost there, almost, all right? And then I would urge you to rethink the residential issue, because Dan and Paul and I also and Mark, not Alzheimer's yet, have made
Knock on wood.
some good point. My mother would say
Like this, I was going to.
made some good points, but I think some of it needs more discussion. So you're always going to be tweaking laws. Always. That's a given.
You're 100% right there,
Thank
Susan.
you for being open about tweaking them.
Thank
so
you.
let's add the functional thing, get that settled, and then please let's get back to this issue of the residential. But I think we can, at this point, because of the time constraints, separate them.
I agree.
I support
On the my question to the board is, how do we feel about dropping or lowering the threshold?
From 50 like 25?
That would be too low. Look, I think the 50 is a good number. If you the concern I have, I was listening to Mr. Strauss, if you actually limit to size of acreage and percentage, you could end up with more damage in the woodlands. I think that making sure that we have that threshold, and I think 50 is a decent number to go with, 50% of the project, because it'll either shorten the project or keep them out of the woodlands to avoid that. So I think if they go, yeah. Thoughts? Other thoughts?
I don't think I have to go on and say everybody knows how I feel about ground-mounted solar. I can't stand it. This is like I said, I've said it before, I'll say it again. This is a gentle balance. I think if we're going to limit it, may we drop the threshold down to 30%? 30%. That's kind of a balance on where we could be.
And can we, obviously it has to be a certain type of woodlands, right?
Well, it has to be protected woodlands.
Right. So if there's any bit that's protected woodlands, could it be that it's mandatory to do the
Then you drop
analysis?
the threshold altogether. So then if it's anytime you touch the protected woodlands, you have to, whether it's
one tree or
right. And the concern we had, the concern that was raised there was the example of Kitchewan Farm, because Kitchewan. John, do you remember how much of the project went into the protected woodlands off the top of your head?
Percentage-wise, no.
Was it? Can you ballpark it? Was it a small amount?
I'm thinking, it's a relatively small amount. It's, I would say probably less than 10%.
So, like in that case, do you're going to require the additional study for 10% when 90% of the project is right where we want it? And I'm just putting out for your thoughts.
Yeah, it's balance. It's all about balance.
Yeah. Let me just quantify that. It's
No,
ground-mounted ground-mounted radar. Yeah, ground-mounted solar in a residential area.
But I know that but all of us know, including 10% of runoff is a lot of water, right? So it's almost like this is why I think that maybe 30 is a better number.
So where I live, we have flooding regardless, and we have trees. The flooding pulls down the trees sometimes. We lose trees in our backyard. I don't think I think that sometimes a man-made mitigation will help the situation.
Oh, I agree.
Right. So, where it was sort of mocked a little bit, there's a belief structure in the retention wells and the different ways of filtering the water out of the system.
Oh yeah, totally.
So it is.
Which they have to do for any ground thing.
Right.
I think. Are you at the podium?
You sold your spot?
All right. Yes, sir.
Wait, hold on. I gotta know, because this is this whole cost benefit analysis. What
First,
exactly is a spot selling for now at courtesy of the floor?
Box of matzah.
I'm sorry, a
box of matzah.
Mr. Kopstein, go for it.
I agree with Councilman Diana. I hate ground-mounted solar in residential areas. It becomes a black desert, and it creates a runoff. Though I hate going in this direction, but I think if it's a protected woodlands, 0%, do the full analysis, period. Don't start playing games, because I can tell you what happens. I didn't have any flooding at all on my property until Hurricane Floyd. Some trees went down. For whatever reason, the cleanup on the properties didn't occur. And now with every major rainstorm, the yard gets flooded. Never happened before Floyd. So when you have trees, when you have a woodlands that is critical, do a full scope analysis. unless you want to go along with Councilman Diana and just say, no, it's a black desert, we're not doing it, period, case closed.
Thank you, Mr. Copsey. Mr. Lieberman, you taking your spot back?
Sure.
2 boxes of matzah.
I know.
I'm going to go for 2.
One gluten-free.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm really trying to put my arms around this, and the example is really important. So if we took all the available woodlands in Yorktown, available for solar or qualify for solar, you're saying 50% of that can become solar farms by your
No.
That's not what I said at all, sir. No.
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 49%.
No.
Okay,
I'm saying if-
so
no.
you really
If-
need.
if there's a project-
we really need examples.
So to the town board, I mean,
No, if there's any projects and 50% of it bellies up to a protective woodlands, then it must have the proper analysis. And what we're trying to
The full analysis, not the
fullest
proper.
analysis. Well, it's analysis.
And could become solar farm.
And if or
Depending on the
functions
site
of
plan
the woodlands
approval.
would say no, it cannot be solar farms because.
So I think that, I understand Mr. Kopstein's point, but I think that a 0% is onerous.
But at the same time, the planning board is
Still vetting it.
They could still do it if they need to. Right.
No, but I believe that the planning board will do it regardless of the percentage. I do believe that, just to make sure that they have the right information. And so if the planning board is going to go ahead and do it anyway, then why not just drop the threshold and just say if you're impeding a protected woodlands, then you got to do the analysis.
Exactly.
Fine.
I love that.
Do 100%.
Fine.
I love that. And Linda, could you find us what that looks like?
That's in the solar law. For
JT,
solar farms.
what were you saying?
And
you
so,
would like if I could
and
get
so
my
if
hands
I,
on?
John, if you could just come to the podium, John.
You said if I could get my
So
hands on a review.
on 270-3, chapter 270-3, talks about climate change and air pollution. This is Ms. Siegel. You're paying right. Climate change and air pollution. If you could, I'm going to read it to you. But what I want from you though is because I don't remember it off the top of my head, on the Barton LaJudas analysis. I know it's past Councilman Diana's bedtime. On the Barton LaJudas analysis, did they examine climate change and air pollution, or is that part of the sequestration analysis? I'm just trying, because if we're going to point to 270-3, I want to make sure that it's something that's something that we can actually examine properly.
Okay. The 2 is the climate change and the
air pollution.
Air pollution. Okay.
I can go upstairs and get the memo.
Yeah, I don't think they did. As my recollection is, I don't think they did climate change. I don't know how you would analyze that relative to this. If anyone has a method, I'd love to have it.
Okay.
Okay. Second is the air pollution. I think they talked about that and the glare, but as you can imagine, the air pollution was nil. Other than and did they do what the trees do by bringing in air at night and so on and so forth? No, they didn't do that in terms of air pollution. No.
What about water infiltration? I believe there was attention given to water infiltration.
That's done as a matter of course when you look at the stormwater.
So we could achieve water infiltration as part of this in-depth review. I don't want to point to 270-3 and it's impossible to actually accomplish. That's why I'm asking. Because the next one is
stormwater. Okay, so the infiltration in the stormwater has actual numbers that the engineers use to evaluate the change in the runoff.
Yep.
From a woodland to a grassland, et cetera, et cetera.
So it's achievable.
So that's achievable.
Fine. Okay, that's achievable.
Yeah, there's a method for that.
Aesthetic value. I'm not quite sure how we measure aesthetic value.
No.
John?
No, I don't know. That's
you can't.
Subjective category.
Okay. That's number 3. Let me just go through them, please. We have also the ecological benefits of trees and woodlands. And I believe that that was included
In
in
there.
the Barton LaJudas memo.
That's a broad category, and the Barton and LaJudas memo looked at what they could and the resources that they had, and from their own knowledge, those benefits.
Right.
I don't know that they ticked off certain particular benefits, or that there was their ability to look at them in a quantitative way. That's an important point. The state website evaluated all of the forests around the area and have them categorized.
Mhm.
And this was not categorized as a core forest, which bore out by their site visit. And you can see in their pictures, for instance, there's little understory, native understory, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So that would be that.
So, but if we're looking to examine ecological benefits, that is or ecological impact, there's a path to achieve that. For the woodlands, as it relates to the woodlands.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a path to achieve an analysis on woodland regeneration?
I believe there is.
Okay. Is there, let's see, is there a path to achieve an analysis on impact on natural habitat for wildlife, including biodiversity and the ecosystem stability?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And is there a path to achieve an analysis on the vegetation of the woodlands?
Yes.
Okay. So then it seems so.
Those are identification items.
Yeah, I was going to say they're like.
I understand. Listen,
So
but this
it's
is what
identifying-
270-3 has. I mean, that's what we. If we were to do an assessment of the functions of the woodlands identified in section 270-3, those are the things that are listed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just want to make sure that if we're asking someone to do an analysis, they can actually do an analysis. I just don't see how you do an analysis on the aesthetics
You can't.
of trees. John, if you can.
An analysis?
No.
On the aesthetics,
You
yeah.
can
Just do an appreciation.
you can certainly talk about the types of trees that are there, their maturity, their form.
Are they native? Were they just
Yeah.
founded here?
So, and as to the extent that translate to an aesthetic value, you can talk about it.
Uh-huh.
You cannot, I don't think, analyze it in terms of coming up with some grade for this particular
That's
area
extremely
of the
subjective.
forest,
It's an
or
opinion.
the forest at hand. No, I don't think that's achievable in a way that.
Okay.
No. The other ones seem like they have a method. That one doesn't have a method.
That's what we're going over is the list that's listed out in the tree law. If you want to take the podium, Mrs. Miller, you can.
Viewshed analysis is a recognized environmental and ecological aspect. It's a category that's in environmental impact statements, and in fact, the Storm King project up the river actually was a court case that established viewsheds as something that needs to be considered.
So viewshed is when we say aesthetics.
Yeah, that's
You take that as viewshed.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Viewsheds,
different.
aesthetics. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We just thought it was just based on
No.
the beauty
Yeah.
of the tree.
I'm just
Yeah. And that the report that you're talking about, I believe, talked also about microclimate.
Mm-hmm.
I think it did a kind of a crappy job of it, but it did talk about microclimate and measured the differences in temperatures between the two sites.
But microclimate is I don't see microclimate identified in 270-3, which to Councilman Esposito's point,
Maybe it needs.
I thought
No.
it was.
I don't see microclimate here.
Also, buffering I thought was listed.
I'm sorry, you're right. Microclimate is number one. Microclimatic effects.
So that can be quantified. Is part of the problem with that report was that they said that they couldn't find a lot of data on things for comparison because they were planning on planting grass underneath their solar collectors, and most of the studies that they were citing didn't have grass planted. So they didn't think they were comparing apples and apples.
So, thank you, Mrs. Miller. So it sounds to me that the board is comfortable with requiring an in-depth study of the functionality of the woodlands for large-scale solar projects that have any impact on
protected woodlands.
on protected woodlands. I'm just trying to, I guess the question that the board needs to answer is, do you want it to point directly to 270-3 in the tree law?
You do need a guide.
But that's, I don't know if
Well,
that's a good guide.
I don't have 273 in front of me. That's the intent section?
Here. It's
Yeah.
the findings of fact.
Yeah, okay.
Here, take it.
No, that's fine.
Here.
I'd
love for you to read it and tell me what you think. But and the reason I'm being a bit aggressive with this is I'm just, as we've already stated, my concern is that the longer we wait, I think we are jeopardizing other issues when it comes to potential applications.
I agree with that.
I'm not saying that I want to be very clear. I have no knowledge of any pending applications whatsoever. But I don't want to hear a whoopsie, at the next planning board meeting or in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks while we're still debating. So
No, I'm prepared to move this tonight.
At the March 22nd meeting, I think is where it was at the library where Sergio had actually said, we got to be careful because we could have this happen to us.
It did happen.
And it did.
So
All right.
That's correct.
So John, having read this, give me 2 seconds. Just stay here for a second. Having read this, your thoughts on 270?
Well,
the findings of fact.
it's a mix of subjective statements about the aesthetics. It's a lot of subjectivity there. There are some things that you could pull out and take a scientific view of, I believe. So I wouldn't just blanket point to 270-3 in my view at this, at first blush.
I agree with you.
So
if we're not going to just point to 270-3, can we list out the specific pieces that we want to be studied? I think we can agree on climate change and air pollution, water infiltration. I think we can agree on, we talked about the microclimatic effects, right, Mrs. Miller? Right?
Well, let's take climate change. I'm not sure how you would do that.
The carbon impact. I mean, it's
the carbon
built in,
sequestration.
Yeah, but you're building it. It's already in the
we're
carbon
doing that already. But
I
think climate change is a different animal than just that
Much broader.
analysis.
I agree.
So say carbon sequestration.
Well, carbon sequestration is already being accomplished. It's already required.
Yeah.
All right. So then
we're already checking that box.
Okay.
What about the air pollution problems? I think is that part of the carbon issue?
No.
So can we have them focus? Can that be one of the issues? The air pollution. What is air pollution problems? That's the way it's stated here, including.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Including the microclimatic effects.
Okay. So yeah, the carbon is part of the air pollution, but I think it's a little bit of a different part. So I think that they will probably develop some of the knowledge to make some sort of conclusions on it. That it's going, the forest will pull out a certain amount of carbon. That speaks to air pollution. I think, of course, they release oxygen, yes, but do you juxtapose that against the amount of carbon that the solar farm will, replace to produce electricity? Is that what we're doing?
Can we use the KISS principles here? Keep it simple, stupid.
Please, yes, for the love of God.
All right. Why don't we reference this at the discretion of the planning board?
What do you think?
I mean, I don't know.
As a stopgap.
Can we piggyback with Adam a little bit on that? Would that be, Adam, is that possible?
I think that allowing the planning board to oversee the process, the analysis, makes a lot of sense. They can judge each application on its own sort of individual facts and sort of
That's not what we're saying.
decide what they want to see in the study, but you provide for the study at a high
You
level.
can point to that 273, and then the parts that are that have to be analyzed could be at the discretion of the planning board.
Why don't we pull out?
Well, I think you should. I would suggest you call it.
We can't pass it tonight. I know.
I suggest you would call just require the functional analysis of the woodland.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, John. Can we please
So
hold the conversations
there's
out?
there's some things that are not going to be able to be reduced to function. Aesthetics, I don't think so.
Right, I
Does
don't
it have
think- I don't
function,
think- I
subjective
don't see
function?
that.
We've done the view sheds on all of these, by the way.
That's just
So
a matter of practice by the planning board, right?
it's a matter of practice, in particular with solar, because of the visual effect. So we're doing that on everyone. We don't do it on every development. So
Well, everybody seemed to like the B&L report. What was in? Why don't we take what?
That's what I'm trying. That's why I asked. Right.
So
What
let's
was in
look
it?
at the B&L report
but-
and go and categorize it that way. Put our own list from that's
You
born
just
out
said
of that report, and not reference the tree law.
But that's why I asked John, based on the Barton and LaJudas report that was the final report, are these things discussed or touched upon? Some are, some aren't.
And are they achievable, you said, right?
Right, and is it even feasible to do an
Attainable to
analysis
get
on it?
What do you think,
Some
Adam?
of those things, it's not really.
I think that to the extent you put in a requirement for an analysis, the planning board is going to be able to view the analysis and determine in its own discretion whether it's satisfied with it or not. If they think certain things need to be looked at, they're going to ask the applicant to look at the things. I don't think that you need to get into this hyper level of detail around the analysis. I just don't.
Okay.
and the planning board, I think,
What do we do include but not limited to?
Yes. Yes.
And we
Well,
can
again,
identify some of
you
these
may or
things
may
that
Because maybe
you
there's
may,
no water there.
There may be a factor. Look, theoretically, you could list a factor that's not applicable to a project, but I mean, I think the planning board could disregard that. But that's fine.
He's right about that as well.
What does the rest of the board think?
I'm comfortable.
Include but not limited to. I mean, and we can expand upon that if necessary, or the planning board can expand.
And then just
upon
say as appropriate at the end.
that. As appropriate.
So you're giving them the guidance of what we want to see,
273.
but pieces of it,
Yeah.
and then it gives them the ability to go beyond that if they feel it's necessary.
If they got to go deeper into it. Yeah.
It's the happy medium right
I
now.
I
That's
think
all
the
about
planning
mediums.
board, by the way, has been shown to be very responsive
And this
to the
is
public.
this is not. This is. I want to
I,
make sure
I know
I'm
it's
very-
I'm just stating
Looks like
for
to the planning board or
everyone's
the planning department. I think
benefit that no, I'm not taking it that way. What I'm doing is emphasizing that when the planning board was satisfied, and the public still wasn't, the
They kept
planning
going,
board
kept
kept
pushing.
going
Kept going.
to get more information, so that
Right.
they would be sure, and and likewise the public.
Right.
That's all.
We appreciate that, Jonathan.
Ms. Siegel.
Sorry, several points. One, as I think Mr. Rodriguez said, if you list certain things like reference to 73, but not limited to, if something isn't applicable, all the report has to say that that issue isn't applicable to this one. Period. End of story. The other thing is the potential problem is that it's the town board that works out the agreement with Barton and B&L.
B&L, yeah, I got you.
B&L, okay? To the best of my knowledge, the planning board had no input on what they were going to look at, all right?
No, but the planning board requested the study be done.
But who negotiated the agreement? Nobody from the planning board told B&L what to look at.
I mean,
So that is.
but I think it's in the scope of their work, John.
No, it was very limited. The other.
Well, I'm sorry. Can we just? I'd like an answer.
Yeah, of course. Of course. I would point out our environmental consultants, they understand what they need to look at. And of course, the planning board certainly tells them, here's the important points. We have a forest. Please look at the function, and et cetera, et cetera. That was told to them.
And I would also venture, John, if I'm correct, that they get paid by the amount of time they work as consultants, so they would not shortchange the report, if they could extend it a little bit.
This report was extended. Take it
Yeah,
all.
exactly.
But I guess my question is, when it comes to this negotiating of the scope, they get their direction from the planning board.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh my God.
I'd like to see the memo where the planning board gave input for the scope for Foothill and Strawberry, the two that I know of that they did. Also, some of the things, there's been a lot of talk about quantify. Perhaps something does not always have to be quantified. Okay.
That you can't hold someone accountable for something you can't quantify.
But they could make a subjective judgment when the planning board said no to the shrub oak solar panels. Okay, it wasn't quantified. They said, we don't like the look of those panels.
That was quantified.
No, we don't like.
It was quantified. It's inappropriate for the area. That was their quantification of it, and they were absolutely right.
So they could do this, and that the visual is lesser because the planning board is doing a reasonably good job on the visual.
Actually, I think they're doing a very good job.
Okay, very good job. This is a question for the town attorney. If the town board works up language like this and adds something, regardless of what the language is, would this require a new public hearing? Something like when you added the grandfather clause? Is this substantive enough?
I don't think so, no.
I don't think so either.
This is the public hearing.
Right.
The fourth one.
I know.
When the law changed.
But we also recognize.
When you added the grandfather clause.
But in that instance, we also recognize the need to continue to solicit input.
All right. So what
Right.
you're saying now is that if the board agrees to the language of what it's going to put in tonight,
We don't need to we don't need a new hearing.
Correct. And
we won't be able to vote on it tonight.
Oh, we won't need another hearing.
But we won't
Talk
need another
about
hearing.
it, right?
all right,
Right.
but will the public be able to see what the actual
we're
wording
discussing
is
that
we're
right now.
putting in?
We
You're
are
discussing it, but
we are discussing
between
that
what
right
you
now.
discuss and what gets written down.
We're discussing that right now.
All right.
Matt, if I may,
Yes, Mr. Kopstein.
specifically on the shrub oak project.
Yes, sir.
The planning board did do a quantitative analysis. They looked at the height of the panel.
Yep.
They looked at the height of the roads and how there
Distance to the
there was a
road.
delta between the road and the height of the panel. That was looked at, and it was not subjective; it was objective.
Yes.
So to the town board, where are we at here?
Here's where I'm at.
And Adam.
Adam, write it up.
Go ahead.
So I just need your input here. Go ahead, Councilman Esposito.
Here's where I'm at. We definitely need something that's not going to create some law that where we're going to be arguing about whether on subjective terms about whether it's the tree and the aesthetics and this and that, something that we can't quantify, because that is just going to give us some onerous, cumbersome law that we're never going to get through whenever we have to do an analysis. We also have to be mindful of all the other points that we made tonight. And I think it's time to close the public hearing and move this forward. And that doesn't mean that it's the end, it's the final iteration of the law for the rest of our lives and the rest of eternity and, forever and ever and ever and plus 10 years. It doesn't mean that.
I just heard the Rocky song in my head when you did that.
It's time to move forward.
What are you writing down? Some ideas?
I'm just trying to wordsmith.
Over here.
Don't bother.
Install unprotected woodlands. Shall require.
And I think we've made great strides. We're at 0%, which I really like. I mean, we're in good shape.
There's no such thing as perfect. There's just practice.
What do they say?
Keep talking while I'm writing. It's helpful because I'm tired.
I'm keeping you awake. I can't sing, or I would sing for you, but
rehearsal.
I can't do that, Sophia.
Are you going to be adding the requirement of the cost-benefit statement?
I don't think I don't think he's doing that yet. I think they're just listing it right now.
In this size in about 10 years.
I don't think they're doing that yet.
Did we say that?
Listing
So did we
the-
say that we were going to point to 270-3?
That's important to put into the cost that you have a statement for the cost benefit analysis.
Do you think we should? Do you think we should?
He doesn't think we should.
Okay.
I would just say assessment. Study this.
Oh.
The woodlands.
Freezer.
But do we want to list out
Okay.
any of the? Seventh inning stretch. We're just warming up.
We get another 3 hours.
I know the
maybe 4.
What?
To include as appropriate the items listed in 270-3.
Okay, that's good. I like that. I need vodka.
Me too.
What do you think was in here to begin with?
The items listed
Ah, ma questo non ci va.
270-3. Right?
Yeah, I guess. I think my moratorium would be. It was.
This is all your fault. Just so you know that.
My moratorium.
And hers too.
My moratorium.
How did she get in trouble?
Oh, I know who did it. Don't worry. All right. How's that? You want to try this?
What? Oh. No wonder she's so quiet at the end.
Shall require an in-depth analysis of the functions of woodlands to include,
She did it on purpose.
as appropriate, the items listed in 270-3.
Listen.
Yes.
With always, always,
I guess.
always good intentions.
That's what we're trying to
Always
achieve.
just good intentions.
No, I'm almost there. No, I'm almost there.
Almost there.
Almost there.
5 minutes.
Yeah, I know. All right, let's try this. So
5-minute break.
John, let me know what you think of this. So for large-scale solar projects,
Okay, come on. All right, folks. Stand by.
if we can have everyone's attention, we're almost there. Government at work, right? For large-scale solar projects that are proposed to be installed on protected woodlands, shall require an in-depth analysis of the functions of woodlands to include, as appropriate, the items listed in 270-3.
Okay.
So I think there's a little flexibility there for the planning board. If there's items within the 270-3 that they don't feel are applicable, right? But it also requires for any large-scale solar to be installed on a protected woodlands to do that type of analysis.
Yeah, okay.
Do I know John or what? You're a terrible poker player.
You
Yeah.
All right, John, what don't you like?
What don't you like?
Yeah.
Yeah, just tell me.
No, I'll take it.
It's also midnight. Maybe that's his midnight thing.
No, it's not. It's 11:30. We still have time.
We got, yeah, we got
He
plenty
doesn't
of
turn
time.
into a pumpkin for another 28 minutes.
No,
I think he's getting better looking.
No, I'll take it.
You're looking good.
Listen, we'll do the aesthetic stuff too, but my point has always been is when you get into analysis to compare in a cost-benefit fashion, it's going to be impossible.
But
There's
there's
no
no-
number. So,
right, but
so
I
what
think-
you write, what you've written there, is fine.
Amen.
Matt, are you going to add the statement requiring the cost?
No. I don't think that. I think that just gets us into a place that we can't get out of. You're never going to get there. But what you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to provide the analysis to the planning board and to the public to understand the true impact that this is going to have on a woodlands, regardless of the size or how much of the percent of the regardless if it's 10 trees or 10 acres, you're getting the same type of analysis now. I think that's a substantial step forward.
Yeah.
What about the last line about mitigation, adding the word woodlands?
No,
Because you're
I think
mitigating, not the loss of trees.
I think that this piece, in addition to the other amendments, strengthens this law considerably. It incorporates a lot of the comments that we've heard from the last 4 public hearings. I think it puts a lot of protections into place, many protections into place, from where you can put them, again, talking about large scale, to dealing with Councilman Diana's initial concern about
Not doing it.
small scale on residential. So I think it really Yeah, I think we've come across the finish line here, folks, and I know it's been for large scale. So it's the amendments that were proposed, and we will include for large scale. We'll be including a new section. I believe it would be a new section, correct, Adam? Adam, would this be a new section? It would be a new section F that reads, for large-scale solar projects that are proposed to be installed on protected woodlands shall require an in-depth analysis of the functions of woodlands to include, as appropriate, the items listed in 270-3.
What is...
The grandfather clause, because the grandfather clause specifically references that some of the other amendments would be applicable and some aren't, if I remember.
No, I think, Adam, can you just, this will be included. The grandfather, yeah.
No bearing on one another. There's no bearing.
Okay, no bearing according counsel.
If something is in the very preliminary stages, if something is in the very, thank you. Maybe they don't want to hear from me anymore. But if something is in the very preliminary stages, I'm thinking of the one down on Dell Avenue, for example, that came in once and it hasn't come back. Would that be required under this law?
I think that's up.
No. An application in it would not be. No, it would not have.
Well, but the way that
Susan, the application would be grandfathered in.
But if I remember the grandfather clause, and it's been a while since I read it, some of those amendments were required, like the decommissioning thing, and I think the pilot thing. You still had to abide by, even if you were a pending application, but others you weren't.
Adam, can you look?
Yes, there was a difference.
So, what's the question? Okay,
the
so
question is, if something
will
is in the very preliminary stages, and there are some applications that are in the preliminary
this provision
stages.
will not apply to the applications that are currently pending, unless the board would like the legislation to indicate otherwise. If the board would like the legislation to indicate otherwise, we can.
I just don't know how you're going to differentiate, though, between an application like Dell Ave.
Something that hasn't had a public informational hearing yet. Put it that way. If it hasn't gotten to that stage.
To the town board. I don't.
I think you don't change the goalpost in the middle of the game. That's always been my feeling on it. And I think we've beat this horse to death and into glue.
Into glue, and now the glue is dried.
It's time to move forward.
I would like
So,
to,
with that,
Where are you putting it? Where's F? F is in what section?
so it would be
We're not telling you that.
yeah, 2F.
2F, yeah.
so I would
Come on, I feel like this was a great meeting.
motion to close this public hearing.
I
We have a
second.
motion and a second.
So
to close
moved.
the public hearing.
So moved.
Aye.
Aye.
Second.
Any?
As amended.
As amended.
Yes, as amended.
So moved. Aye.
As amended,
we're making
Diana.
you happy.
Thanks.
All right.
Michelle.
So moved. Aye.
The public hearing is officially closed. The town board cannot take any action on this because it needs to be on our desk for 7 days in the written local law form. So, Mr. Town Attorney,
Happy writing?
I wrote it for you, buddy. So, so with that, if there's no other business before the board,
Good night.
To adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Yorktown. Have a
That
great
was
night.
great.